Education meeting is called to order. We'll start with the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we begin, I'd like to remind everybody, thank you for wearing masks. It is required in our boardroom. Roll call, Marty.
Mary Jo Rasmanowski.
Here.
Mary Jo Radcliffe. Tom Epps.
Here.
Troy Webb.
Here.
Amy Huffman. Here. Ann Deemer. Brad Dobbs.
Here.
Thank you. Has the meeting been notified to the public according to open meeting laws?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Dr. Severson is joining us through Zoom tonight. So, okay. I'll make a motion to move items 8.3, 6.1, and 5.6 to the front of the agenda as we have presenters for that. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We'll start out with the 8 high school roof bid award, and we have Kent here.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
We put out, as you guys probably are aware, we put out the roof bids. They came back significantly higher than we had hoped for. We had 2 low bidders, and we sent that back out to them to get their lowest possible bid. And Malcor dropped $1,000 all the way down to $348,000. So that's who we are hoping to go with. They're an Illinois company, but they've been around for 100 years. I know they've worked with Tremco before. If you have any questions, I don't know.
Did we have Mauer before? Is that?
Mauer did it last time, yep, a couple years back. They had the low bid that year. I'm not real concerned about having a crew from out of state come up and do it because Tremco is actually the one that holds the warranty on it. So if anything were to happen in the next 20 years, Tremco kind of holds them to the due diligence. They'll have to come back and repair any leaks or wear and tear that happened in the first 20 years. I don't know what I didn't say last time.
And this is just for the high school.
Dropped $1,000. Yeah, that's just for the high school. That's not the entire high school roof. We tried to. I mean, some of the bids came in close to $800,000 if we were doing a larger section. So we kind of tried to section down as what we thought was the most viable options for the high school, especially what the leaks are. It would cover our worst spots for now, and look like the best bang for our buck at this point. They're hoping for a larger section, but it's not in the cards for the summer.
Any board members have any questions?
When would they begin?
As soon as they could get on the roof, they would probably start in June and then work through the summer. It would probably be about a 6-week process if everything goes smoothly.
Do we do one more section of roof?
We would hope to get it in one more section, like the Sam Young gym's not included in this, and we in a couple little smaller sections. So, you know, we'd probably push back another summer, try to double up funds again, unlike this year, because I think when we did it 2 or 3 years back now, that was 2 years backed up, so we had more like $500,000 to work with than $350. But, and I mentioned before, you know, the reason we really like this fluid applied roof is there's no seams, runs right up the wall. We feel like it's a better product, probably the best product we get. And then down the road is where the real savings are because you can just power wash the whole roof if you're under your 20 years. And they put a new fluid applied, and then you would save, you know, you're not tearing anything off. You save a lot of money down the road. So that's kind of why we push that.
Any other questions? Is there a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve the bid for Malcor as presented.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Any more discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Ken.
Thank you.
Next is focus on purpose. We'll have the elementary ELA teachers.
We have a lot of elementary teachers with us tonight. Everyone can stand up here. There are a lot of people teaching reading in ELA. From Forest Street. Here, Forest Street people could come up and do this a second. And basically what the team did is they went through and provided there was a green button before I was controlling it, now I'm not controlling it.
Try it again. I just plugged in the thing.
Okay.
Oh.
So basically for the board's information, for each, from 4K through second, for 4K through first for Forest Street, the guarantees and areas of focus for ELA has been provided for you so that you can see what we're really trying to focus in on. And you'll notice we're really,
Go ahead, go by the mic.
oh yeah,
Thank you.
you bet. And you'll notice that there's a huge focus on, everything is we turn on, I apologize. Yep, thank you. Foundational reading skills. And now these ladies are for sure the experts, so feel free to jump in. Yeah, kindergarten, is there anything you'd like to say, or the 4K, what you're focusing on? Yep, and then, yep, so this was all here for your information. And just some information about the curriculum that we're using. And then the screen went black. So when you see the tiers, this is how the data that we're using to help talk about where students are performing in the various skills, like those standards that we showed on the previous slides, in a nutshell. And work that's being done for enrichment, and work that they've been doing last semester. What we're doing in tier 3, so that's our students that need the most help and support. And the areas of next steps. So what this fabulous team has done is put together a video. I'm clicking. And I don't know if I need to give you back the power, if it's going to let me.
I can do it.
Less will. Less will. Bird 4. Bird 4. Money, honey. Money, honey. Yeah. C, B. C, B. Perfect. All right. I'm going to say 2 words, and then I'm going to say the beginning sound, and then you say it. Okay? Let's be nice and loud. Here we go. Paint, pen, puh. Paint, pen, puh. Name, near, Remember, I say it first. Wait till I'm done, and then when I point at you, it's your turn. Mom, most, Mom, most, Fine, feel, fuh. Fine, feel, fuh. Room,
Are you sure? Yeah. Okay, so you're going to tell me the, hold on. You're going to tell me the sound one time and show me the hand cue. vowel in a word, but we say the wrong sound. What happens?
It's a totally different word.
Right, it's a totally different word. And then it gets our brain all confused. So that's why these are so important that we practice every day. That way it gets stuck in our brain, right?
Which two letters go above it? T and H. Everything else is below the dotted line, right? Don't worry about the little circle yet.
Sore. Arm. Mark. Farm. Okay, beginning sound. Corner. Individual phonics. Return. Harvest. Sailor. And winter. Or you said the word, just slide it. Arm. 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 Dirt. T-shirt.
If I say the sound is L, you're going to draw an L, and then you're going to underline it from left to right, okay? So you're gonna go like this. And then I'm gonna say shake it out, and you're gonna shake gently, and we're gonna keep going, all right? All right? Yes, question?
We can do your name and what starts on your beginning name, and you can think what's your name.
You can if your name starts with that sound. All right, eyes on me. Ready? The sound is er. That is not right. Okay, Rosie, can you show me a lowercase r? Show me lowercase. Nice job. Oh.
I don't know that.
You did the right. What we're gonna do, girls, if the word is a real word, you're gonna give me a thumbs up. Kind of simple. If the word is a make-believe word, Harley, you're gonna give me a thumbs down. Okay? So practice thumbs up. Show me what thumbs up looks like. Show me what thumbs down looks like. All right, here we go. We're ready. So we're gonna say each sound and then we're gonna blend it fast. Ready?
Blood.
Ooh, let's try that again. So let's do this. When we think of our sounds, let's kind of hold them out, okay? So ready? Hub. Let's try this word. Here we go. Ready? Oh, what is this sound? Very good. Let's go again. D.
Job.
Let's try to hold those sounds out. Ready? Jud. 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 Real word, make believe word. It's not a real word. It's a make believe word. Yep. All right. Here we go. How about this one? Yep. And yad. Yad. What do you think, Kennison? Real word, make believe word. Yad. Yeah, that's a make believe word.
Hi, I'm Melissa Plaza, and I'm a kindergarten teacher here at Forest Street. This is our third year using CKLA Phonics, or the skills strand. During the first few weeks of school, we teach writing strokes, so horizontal lines, vertical lines, hooks, diagonal lines. We also listen for environmental sounds. All of these things are super important within the first few weeks. That way they know how to write the letters when we get to that. Then we do teach the sounds, and we also teach visual phonics with it. For example, we don't teach the letter name first. We actually just started teaching letter names, and it's February. So we only teach the sound first. So for example, our first sound that we teach is and we have a visual phonics hand cue for that. And the kids do really well with remembering those. And if I prompt them like this, then they can tell me the sound. It's pretty cool. So after we teach all of the sounds, or as we teach the sounds, we also have vowels in there, and then they learn how to blend and segment words. And right now, we're learning how to read and write CVC words as well as phrases, and just kind of putting it all together. So we've learned all of our sounds right now, all of the vowels, and we're going to be learning about digraphs and blends very soon. So in addition to CKLA skills, we also do Haggerty every morning, and it has been a huge difference maker. So Haggerty is just auditory, so they're not looking at letters, they're not writing anything, it's all just by hearing and word of mouth. And it is just an incredible program that we've seen huge gains with, and our data supports that. So working with both of them working together, we've seen amazing things happening, and hopefully, and I know that actually in first grade they're seeing the same things, and that's helping build those foundational skills.
So before we go on to Rec Creek, do you have any questions for our forestry teachers that are here with us today?
Not a question, but I'm just very impressed with the variety of glimpses that they're showing us. Thank you very much.
I just had a general question. You know, you've got the Orton Gilling on the 95% group, and then there are a couple others you had listed. I'm just kind of wondering, out of curiosity, how long have those different teaching methods, is that what they are, teaching methods? How long have they been around?
Well, Orton Gillingham's been around a while. CKLA is a relatively new program, but it's been long enough to be research-based, and they have a pretty good solid base underneath it. Haggerty is also a newer program, but it also has that solid research base. So it's not like brand new, like no one's tried it, like here we are just jumping in, but it's a little bit more.
So what is new? Is new 5 years? Is new 10 years?
That 5 to 10 year for both CKLA and Haggerty. Or Gillingham, I'm not sure, like I couldn't, but it feels like 20. But like the research that all of this is based on is 20 plus years old, like it's older research. So we also have a large group of people from Red Creek here. I'd love to turn it over to them. Oh, sorry.
Hi, I'm Mrs. Zimmerman from 4th grade, and The first set of slides will be the reading and writing guarantees for each of our grade levels at Red Creek. We're not going to be reading through all of them, but would like to point out as we go how one of these guarantees builds off one another throughout grades 1 through 5. The reading standard that we'll focus on starts in first grade and has the students ask and answer questions about key details. In second grade, students are expected to answer both literal and inferential types of questions about key details in text.
You have the clicker, Christy.
Oh, sorry. No, it's waiting for.
She's looking at me like I'm crazy. In third grade, this continues to build and asks students to ask and answer questions to demonstrate understanding of a text, now requiring the students to explicitly refer, which means to showing the text where they found the answer as the basis for their answers. And then in fourth grade, this builds on by asking the students to use a written format to refer to where the answer was found within the text. For example, saying the text says that dolphins have a dorsal fin to aid in their swimming. And that's one of their favorite books, by the way. And then we have in fifth grade, the students are expected to quote directly from the text to explain their answer. An example of a fifth grade response would be, on page 2 in paragraph 3, the text states that Otis is confused about the secret meeting. This means that the reader is also confused about the meeting as Otis is the narrator of the text. So as you can see, this guarantee becomes more and more complex as each grade level's learning grows from the previous year's learning. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Amy Whitcraft and I teach 5th grade at Red Creek. This slide shows Red Creek's literacy priorities. Phonics has been a building-wide priority this year. Some of the programs that we're using and loving a lot are 95% Group, Kilpatrick, Orton Gillingham resources that we use to teach at all the grade levels. And we're seeing a lot of student success in this area. Our CKLA and our ReadyGen resources are really helping to grow the students' comprehension skills. And we saw that great growth in our iReady assessment.
Hi, I'm Kristen Brining. I'm a second grade teacher at Red Creek. So this slide has to do with the Tier 1. Each of the PLCs work together on a weekly basis to plan for upcoming instruction. We work together to create slides to drive our instruction. These slides contain the most important components of the lesson that we want to make sure we teach. However, the slides that provide the what of the lesson, but we as teachers still have the flexibility to teach the lesson that we think how it will best work for our students. When we meet during our PLCs, we make pacing decisions about our lessons based on how the students are showing their proficiency.
Target time is what we call our Tier 2 instruction. This year we've done a much better job of getting to the root cause of students' challenges in ELA. We use the Dibble's Universal Screener to look for students who are below benchmark in oral reading fluency. We then use a phonics screener to pinpoint where each student is struggling. We group students who have similar challenges and give instruction in that exact area of need using Orton Gillingham and 95% group resources. We then progress monitor each of these students every other week to be sure that they are progressing. We are constantly looking at their data and classroom performance to reassess with the phonics screener to see if they are ready to move on to the next skill. We currently have students who have shown proficiency in phonics who have moved on to working on their reading fluency with the Read Naturally program. We also have groups of students who are currently working on comprehension skills. Target time allows us to address the biggest components of reading for all students in a very systematic manner.
And who are you? Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Katie Brew. I'm the reading interventionist at Red Creek.
And I'm Christy Roush, and I am an instructional coach at Red Creek. And so I wanted to specifically point out what we do with the at and above level kids during that target time. During target time, all students are given work to do that is at their level. The students who have shown proficiency in phonics and fluency and math are working in an iReady group. These students are individually assigned lessons in reading and math that grow their areas of need according to the iReady assessment. Students who show grade level proficiency are assigned the next grade level lessons in order to continue to challenge them to grow. A motivational system was created that challenges the students to keep working hard. For each assignment sheet that is completed, certain students earn one brag tag. These brag tags will be accumulated throughout the year, and the students are very motivated by these brag tags. They also love letting their teacher know when they finished a lesson. Teachers have noticed that their students have shown growth in areas such as geometry on the iReady assessment, even though there hasn't been any formal grade level instruction in this area yet this year. This growth can be attributed to their work during target time.
Our Tier 3 work at Red Creek is very data-driven. We use the universal screeners to make a list of students who benefit from Tier 3 instruction and then discuss each of these students in order to create our schedule. We meet with groups of 3 to 4 students for 30 minutes a day. For our reading interventions, we are using Orton Gillingham, Sound Partners, and SIPS as our programs. We progress monitor each student on a weekly basis. We have created a data folder for each student in order to closely monitor and adjust our instruction based on the student's progress monitoring data. We have started our second round of interventions this school year, and we are very excited to have students who have been dismissed from Tier 3 due to their strong growth and their reading abilities in the first semester.
Hi, Mr. Pierce, 5th grade teacher at Red Creek. So at Red Creek, we're constantly striving to do better in everything we do. These are our next steps for our reading and writing in our building. So continue to align rubrics to each of our reading and writing guarantees. Since we're a standards-based assessment, we do standards-based assessments, we need to make sure that the students know exactly how we're going to score them, so the rubrics kind of do that. That's the role they play. Find exemplars to share with the students for each writing piece. I find it very worth my time to have my students see what other students in the past have done who have met the standard. Utilize strategies to increase students' working vocabularies. We're definitely very much focused on vocabulary this year. And continue to close the achievement gap. So we are excited about the growth that we are seeing in our students and look forward to seeing even more.
And then we also created a little video about ELA at Red Creek.
I got access today.
What's that?
I got access today, since I don't have access.
This afternoon.
Sorry, I don't know.
While you're working on getting that, if I could interrupt for a moment? Okay, I just wanted to share just a little bit. I appreciate the staff that came tonight to share with everyone, so thank you for taking the time to do that. And for those that made the video, I also just wanted to share that I know the staff are giving an awful lot of credit to the resources that we're using, and we are very appreciative of those new resources. Nicole has talked to us a couple of times this school year about how everything is aligned to the science of reading. And so to get back to Amy's question, how long have these resources been around? This is all really grounded hard in that science of reading. I'm feeling like perhaps your question was prompted by that idea of the pendulum swing, that we went so far to literacy collaborative and now have we gone all the way back the other direction. And I would say that the science of reading really lands somewhere on that pendulum swing, not really hard on one side or the other. And so I feel like we should have had our AGR report right after this so that you could look at the growth right after, but all in good time. When we get to that, you'll be able to see it. I just didn't want to discount the importance of the quality teachers in the classroom. So we can purchase all the resources and programs that are out there, but if not in the hands of a quality teacher, those programs are not going to move mountains by themselves. And so I appreciate the staff's recognition of the investment in those resources, but certainly want to point out that the staff themselves are a critical component in the student success.
Thank you, Dr. Severson, and the board feels that way as well. As we're still looking for that video, appreciate you all coming here tonight, and we did move it forward because we know some of you may want to go home to get ready for tomorrow. So really appreciate it. Is there anything else you'd like to say to the board? Any questions for anybody from the board?
I just would like to, I'm so sorry. I wanted to add, I was watching their faces as they were watching their students, and just the pride that's sitting over here is pretty impressive as well. I just want to commend all of you. Thank you for all that you do.
It said freeze on it. I don't know. There we go.
We're working on sentences that describe the far people and how they live. Hours earlier, Sunday, April 14, 1912, 7:15 a.m. First class suite B deck, RMS Titan. The right decision, yes. And it's choose the antonym for the word. Rotate, pivot, artificial, and chamber. Skeleton and one animal with an exoskeleton, so that we can just compare the similarities and differences. Excellent.
Why are you guys doing this assignment today?
We're just trying to learn about satellites, and we're learning it because we have to understand the parts of text. Learning about satellites. So for give evidence in text, do you think we should write, like, it gives us informational facts? So yeah, informational facts.
And I think this one up here is a good one because it's like at this moment there are more than 2,400 artificial satellites orbiting the Earth. And I feel like that's a really big fact, and it's his opening thing. Yeah, that's good, but put quotation marks. Yeah.
Well, thank you for your time and putting all of this together for us too. We really appreciate it and give us a personal glimpse into everything. Do any board members have any more questions? Comments?
No, just thank you. I appreciate all the work that you do.
Yeah. And we love seeing those scores go up, and your hard work is really paying off. Thank you very much. So you may stick around if you wish, or you may head for home. Thank you. Thank you for attending. Next item is 5.6, the Town of Curran Broadband Financial Request.
So the last month that we met, you had asked for some additional information, and I included that in the board packet. There was a question about the residency in all of our townships, so that is item 5.6 in your packet. You had also asked me to do a little digging to find out if there were other of our 20 townships that were perhaps at the point that they would be asking for any kind of matching funds for their grant proposals. And I talked to Ray Ransom, and he said that there will not be any other townships that are ready to submit the grant by the March deadline that is coming up. There may be other townships in the future that make an application, but at this time, the town of Curran, and I think you saw in the communications this week that Northfield is also partnering with them. And so Marianne is available for us again if you have any specific questions for her. And I had just put the last presentations and stuff in the packet if you guys needed any reminders on that. So I am open to your discussion.
One question for Shelley first on that. Shelley, can you hear me first?
I sure can.
On that graph, the unassigned, can you explain the unassigned township?
I can explain it, Shelley. I know what it is. We're not required to collect that data, okay. So it's whether they filled it out on the form or we've asked for it. So those are still all active kids in our district.
Okay.
Actually, Jill, we don't know that they're active. That means that's where they live. Some of these do open enroll out as well. So these are resident districts, not active current students.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yep.
Any more questions or discussion on? Thank you for providing so much information in the past couple months on this. I think we have a pretty clear picture of what is requested. Is that, am I thinking? See some head shaking?
Well, for Marianne, how much are you short as of right now?
Okay, just a second. We're still gathering data from everyone. Really, the only match we have for sure is about $11,000, and the match number is $174,000. There are two other school districts who are considering this request tonight at their board meetings also.
And Marianne, would it be fair to say that so Blair Taylor is also involved, right? And they have a larger share of their student population lives in this township, right? That's, yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Any discussion? Anyone willing to make a motion?
More discussion, actually. Okay. How often, this is a question probably for Jill, actually. How often do we support infrastructure in our community with the school district? I mean, this is more of an infrastructure type of proposal, I understand. And so I'm not just trying to put out there, we don't provide any other services to anyone outside the school district, except for the free Wi-Fi during the pandemic. We have not really offered any infrastructure at all, is that correct? So there's no precedence is what I'm saying. Is that a fair assumption?
I think that's a fair statement. Yeah.
And so, I don't recall the exact amount, what is the town of Prairie requesting for funds to match?
They had a number of proposals in the original one, which,
Yeah, what was it exactly?
367.
367, okay, that is 1,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yep. If I could jump in real quick. We worked with the town of Kern and Northfield have worked with the provider, and they kind of sharpened their pencils a little bit. And right now, Kern needs to raise $174,000, and Northfield has a smaller amount because it's a smaller portion of the town. They have to raise $59,000. But it is going, it's going as a combined application.
Marianne, is that 170, whatever that you said Kern has to raise, does that already take into account the $100,000 from the county, or is that outside?
Yes, it does. I mean, the total amount is larger, but, that's the nut they have to crack right now. The total amount is $274,000, but Jackson County is putting in $100,000. So.
Sure, thank you. I just wanted to clarify if that was pre-county or post.
The last question I had probably for Marianne too is for the service fees that are going to be monthly service fees for the subscription. This is not covering any of that for any amount of time. This is strictly access to the infrastructure at this point. Is that correct?
That is correct. This is the cost. The grant is focused on actually burying the cable. 52 miles of cable total. And it will not cover any of the, the equipment fees or any of the service fees that residents would have to absorb.
This is a request for one-time money. And I think the question that we're all thinking, does this put us in the position that we'll have others coming and asking for the same thing and we do not have money budgeted at this time. So anyone want to have some comments on direction to go?
Well, I had one more comment. I just purchased a satellite internet, Starlink. Not that I'm trying to promote anything, but there is an alternative solutions out there, and actually the startup cost is $500 per residence. And that is actually something, the district actually spent about every single student inside that map, it's about $600,000 of infrastructure costs. It's not cable to the curb, but it is pretty close, a lot better speed that's available for like where I'm at. I'm rural, and I have about 10 meg at the best down, and that's on a good day. Most days it's about 3 meg down, where I can tell you that when my son's streaming anything on TV, quite often it interrupts, and a two-way conversation is virtually impossible. So hopefully with the Starlink, that's not going to be an issue. But all I'm saying is there's a lot of options out there now as the technology is increasing. So there's something we should consider if we do that. My concern is if a lot of townships do ask for money for infrastructure for the school district, is it an efficient way of delegating funds is the question. So I'm not saying, I like the idea of this. I like the fact that they're using federal tax dollars that were headed to the schools for the request. That is awesome, because as we at the board, we're also fiscally responsible for what happens in this district. And right now, I'm not sure the efficiency is there where this makes sense for us. That's all.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Troy. And unfortunately, 174,000. I mean, I don't think the three districts that have their meetings tonight are going to come up with $60,000 apiece to close that gap. And that's nor do I. Yeah, I agree that we need that. I mean, you said $500. That was your install fee.
That's you install self-install. Basically, stick it on the roof and you're done. Yeah.
Cost of your initial equipment.
Yeah,
what's your monthly charge?
$100.
100. So not too far off from what
No, I mean,
internet costs.
I have DSL available, that's $50 a month, and it's a tenth the third one too, so.
How does that work though if you're in a wooded area?
You have to have a line site, east to west, yes.
So not everybody would.
Not everybody, and it wouldn't be for everybody. Some people have access to other services, obviously, but it depends on, but this is basically the outliers that we're talking about. Like Town of Curran is very rural compared to even just where I'm at. And I understand that too, and that would be a significant plus for them too, for more than just, obviously, just more than the school. It would be for all the businesses there, everybody would benefit for it. And that's where it's an infrastructure thing, I think, more than it is a school district, so.
Do we still have unencumbered ESSER funds? Do we have it? No.
We certainly have some that are unencumbered, but we have plans for all of them, right? And so, but some of them are open amounts in the means of if we get to the point of a math curriculum adoption, then we are going to use the funds that aren't used for the salaries and benefits and those other pieces that we were going to use. You purchase with, that we would use that to help offset the curriculum purchase. When we do a K-5 adoption, it's a pretty pricey venue, and so a pretty pricey undertaking. And so any means that we can use, sometimes we grab end of year funds. We definitely were hoping to use ESSER funds to do some of that help. I see Mary again has her hand raised, so I'm gonna, since I'm not sure how much everyone else can see on the screen, I'm gonna call on her because I can see her.
Thank you very much, Dr. Stevenson. Curran and Northfield do not expect the school district to bear the biggest burden of this. Each of the towns also have some of their own ARPA funds that they're going to use for this. I'm not sure the exact amount for each of them. The goal is to try to form partnerships with those entities that can also see a benefit for this, and then they will fit in with other money. And so, you know, what we brought up at the last meeting, you know, were some modest numbers. I think the lowest number was a little over $1,000. And I apologize, I don't have the numbers in front of me. I'm actually in a parking lot in Chattanooga, Tennessee. So I don't have all my stuff with me right now.
Thank
so
you
I
for that.
apologize for not having all those numbers exactly.
No, thank you for that. To be honest, that is part of what I was going to share with the board, that I wrote a letter of support for the initial grant application that was sent out by another school district who shares an area in Jackson County as well, Alma Center. So I've written a letter of support for them. Part of the idea is your grant application looks stronger when you have more partners on board. And so if the board was interested in making a strong stance that we would like to partner, because I think we can all agree that there's many reasons. I know Mr. Carl shared some with you. Communities that have high connectivity are more desirable for young families to move into, right? I mean, that's just the facts of how we move as adults these days, or as families. And so I think we can agree that the more high-speed connectivity we have in our region, the stronger our communities will be. And so if it is a matter of a nominal financial donation that comes with a strong letter of support, we certainly could do that, just to show our good faith effort in wanting to support that. And so honestly, I'm just going to throw this out there as an idea. We could pick a couple $1,000 or, you know, $1,500, $2,000 per student, which is 8 right now. I mean, we could do something like that. I just wanted to throw that idea out there, that it is helpful to the grant to show a strong community partnerships. And I feel like we are also a tax funded entity. And so it doesn't make a lot of sense for us to give our tax dollars to somebody else, right? I mean, so I don't think anybody expects a huge donation from a school district when we are also funded through public funds. And so I just would throw that out for your consideration.
I did think of this question yesterday, so I'm sorry that it might be catching you without the information, but do you, either you, Shelley or Jill, remember how much we spent to help families who didn't have good connectivity during COVID?
Hotspots, we spent a lot, and to be honest, some of these areas, hotspots aren't helpful because they are just not strong enough. They don't have that line of sight as Troy alluded to, and so we spent an awful lot on hotspots, and some were effective, and some weren't. They ended up returning them because even with the hotspot, they couldn't get connectivity. I'm going to say it was upwards of 30,000, but Jill, maybe I'm way underestimating. Maybe that was mid last year, not end of last year, but at one point last year, I know I saw 30,000.
I think that's a fair estimate. I was trying to think per month how much we spent, and that's probably not too far off. It was a lot.
Because I guess some of what I'm thinking is that our kids are expected to use devices for their learning, and so I feel like we should give something to help with it, something. I mean, we're trying to spend money to help these kids be connected anyway, so maybe it's not so much of a stretch to think that we would want to support that and make sure that those kids are able to access their computers and stream stuff or whatever when they need to.
And absolutely, but just to be clear, this is paying for fiber, so they would still need that monthly subscription to get to their house. And so if we are paying for fiber to the houses, they would still need a hotspot to get connected if the family didn't have that. So our investment would still be necessary unless the family were to buy that monthly service at around $60 to $100 as we discussed.
But when it's not even available, it's not even an option. It's just kind of.
Yep. Something's got to budge first, right? I mean, to your point, something's got to happen first so that we can get to that connectivity.
And actually, to go with Shelley's comment too, a token I think is actually the right place to go with this. But I don't know if it's to a specific township. I think it's something where we could, right now, there's different counties involved as well. I think that's where, I think the schools have to be active in the participation of actually discussing this as a countywide issue, is more than at household township level as well. But because right now there is a superior disparate proportion of actually people have connectivity when it comes to students that live rurally versus in town. I mean that's a huge issue right now, and it's not just for school; it's for businesses, it's for everything. All the infrastructure requires that, and you can talk about roads and everything else. It's the same situation. So I think where we could stand behind it is that actually it's kind of enter counties forward and start saying, hey, this is a true issue for education, and and you guys are the representative of every taxpayer in this county, and I think that's something where we can pledge some money behind a county, maybe a county grant or something like that, where they can actually start delegating funds or matching funds to different townships. I think that as we all are, most all of us are in the Jackson County area, we can locally push our elected board people to actually start looking into this. As far as the district offering it to one district or one township only, I can see that it could be difficult for people to perceive that as if they live in a different county, as if their tax dollars or that could be applied to the school or somehow less applicable to them because they decided to give it to 8 students over here, 10 over there. And that's my worry is it just looks like it looks bad to give preferential treatment to one place. I appreciate they look for it first and they brought awareness. I think that is excellent for this.
I can see where it would feel unfair. I guess the reason I think it's a little bit easier is because we do have some ESSER funds, and the ESSER funds are, we're meant to help mitigate some of this COVID stuff, and that has definitely increased the amount of kids being at home and trying to access education from home. And we're obviously not going to have those for very long. And what we're able to do outside of that would be very different.
And I think the risk, and I do think we should do something. I don't know what that means, but I think the risk is that we have 20 townships, and if we give $1,000, I think that's a commitment to $20,000. I mean, whether the next township comes next year or in 5 years, I think we've set a precedent. Yeah.
And then in 5 years, we wouldn't have ESSER funds
Right.
like this. So, you know,
Right.
And so the county is already making a commitment. Ray Ransom said that to me, that the county is giving $100,000 to any township that is ready. He also said it was ESSER funds, and so I don't know that the county will either. Like if we decided to use ESSER funds, I think that might be the same boat that the county is in when it comes time for those ESSER funds to be gone in other townships to get their grants organized. So we're all using the same pot of dollars as it was divvied out to us, right? And so timing is everything.
Yeah.
Well, actually, what you said, Shelley, actually is really quite interesting. The county has $100,000 reserved as far as we understand. If we add to the county pot, would that be something that the county can delegate it then, and it's actually not us doing it as a board then? That's something, like, say, like you said, your token amount, $5,000, that we'll just add to it to whatever they want to delegate out. Is that something that would be reasonable?
So I'm sorry, could you help me understand why you think it, so the county is giving $100,000 to any township, any and all, anybody who asks. And so I guess no, that's what Ray told me, that they had, sorry, Mary Ann is trying to speak.
Okay. I'm sorry. Just let me clarify a little bit. The county has allocated $1 million, and they will give up to $100,000 to any township that asks, but it's not like it's not an unlimited pot. Okay, it really is kind of a first come first serve, and it's out of their ARPA dollars, the American Rescue Plan dollars. So they are, it's kind of first come first serve is how the county's dealing with it right now. Now that may change in the future. I don't know, but I did want to just clarify that. So
I guess, Troy, I don't understand the benefit to us giving it to the county. So if the board is going to give money to this project, are you suggesting that it goes into their, if they put $1 million, they would have $1 million and, $5,000 from us? Or I guess I'm unsure, just so that we're not the decision makers of what township, or what are you thinking?
Just for the purpose of impartiality, that was the whole purpose of it, yes. That's why. Because the county doesn't have the same vested interests as the townships do. They represent all the townships, and so therefore, I let them hand out that money. Or the other option is, like I said, or find some sort of hybrid alternative in the future here. I think that's something that we can look at too, and maybe it looks like something supporting fees for during the school year or something like that for internet connection, something along those lines. I know we won't always have the ESSER funds available, but I just don't see that this is right now to give more than just to give anything right now would be considered partial to a lot of people. That's where I'm just trying to help them to look responsible more in a sense. I just don't want to prioritize these 8 students. I know they need it. I don't want to prioritize those between another 10 students over here that need it just as equally bad. That's the whole issue. So we're just discussing it right now. So I'm not making a motion or anything like that. I'm just throwing the discussion out there. That's all.
If this is an action item, we'll eventually have to make a
We
decision.
will eventually have to make a decision. But right now, I'm not making any official motion. That's all I'm saying.
Anyone else want to go there?
Marianne, you out of that 174,000, you have 11,000 raised. Did I get that correct?
Yes, 11,000 raised
And
as of right now.
And is that 5,000 of that is from Whitehall? Am I correct in that?
No, that is not correct. We've heard that Whitehall is going to be allocating some funds, but I have not gotten confirmation of that yet.
Okay.
It's $10,000 from a specific entity and then small contributions. The town is also going to individual residents who are willing to pledge small amounts of money. One of the things, and Dr. Severson talked about this a little bit, in scoring these applications, there's points given for the amount of match, but also the diversity of match. And so, that's why the concept of the partnership and even small amounts of money is significant when they score these grants, because then they see that, hey, the community and the anchor institutions of the community are behind this project.
So your plan to close that large gap, $170,000 gap, is that you're hoping that the school districts that are meeting tonight are all going to give a token amount, and that makes the grant look better, and you're hoping the grant will close that, whatever it is, say $160,000 remaining?
Well, the remaining money will come out of the ARPA funds, and then also each of the townships are considering, this is kind of premature for me to say this, they're considering other ways to raise money from the taxpayers and from their levy. It could involve taking out a loan that is spread out over several years. It could involve other mechanisms that they have at their disposal. But the thing is, first, to really be able to see what type of partnerships, both with anchor institutions as well as with residents, and then backfill with ARPA funds and, if necessary, other funds. I really don't feel comfortable talking about the very specifics of strategies that the towns are considering. It's just not my role to do that.
I appreciate that, thank you.
Ready?
No. I wish we had 174,000 times 20
Or another month.
townships, yeah.
Another month, till then, whatever.
Yeah, and you do have to have a decision this month, correct, Mary Ann? Prior to March 1, is that right?
Yeah, the funding applications are due March 17th. And really, we need to have all the budget things. Well, here, let me open up my calendar. I think the date that was set for all the final budget things was a week before. So the 10th of March is really...
Marianne, can I clarify? If the township is not able to secure the rest of the funding, that means that we would keep our portion, right? We're not, if the total project is not funded, we do not make our donation. Is that accurate?
Yes,
okay.
That is very, thank you so much for mentioning that. What this would be is a commitment if the proposal is funded.
So that may make something to feel a little bit better.
Is there a required time frame in which we would have to give the funds over, should it all work out the way that they're hoping?
Well, we would use ESSER funds, and so we got those, in-house to use whenever they need it. So it's just making that commitment.
I feel everybody's angst about this, that, it's, yes, to support this is great, but is it the board's responsibility or the school district of Black River Falls' responsibility to fund this? So I think if we strongly feel that, our tax dollars can be spent elsewhere, in-house, then I don't think we support it.
Could I make a suggestion of $1,000 per student that lives there and a letter of support so that it helps to support their grant writing? And would the motion would very clearly say while ESSER funds are available, so that would be our fallback if other townships should ask in the future and we no longer have ESSER funds available. I'm just throwing that out as a suggestion.
Shelley, do we know how many family households are involved, or is it just 8 students, and how many households are involved in?
I'm sorry, I don't have that number on the top of my head. I don't have it. I had asked Boy how many River Falls school-age children live in Kern, and that number was 8. They don't all attend our district, but they reside in our district. So that's where I pulled that number from. I believe Mr. Krause had shared some numbers via email. I can look that up.
It says 86 registered voters in one of the slides here too. That's the registered voters that are in our district that are part of town of Kern. Is that correct? That's what it shows here. So how many households that is, I don't know, but individuals, I guess, that are over 18.
But it could be 8 students now and 10 students next year, or 4 students.
Yeah, that varies, I'm sure.
I guess I'm just using a lot, Amy had talked about that we're investing in the hotspots right now, so I guess that was my logic, so.
You know, and if we don't feel comfortable, like if we kind of feel like we want to give something, but we're still kind of scared about the amount. You know, if we give $750 per student, that's like $6,000. Obviously, if we gave 5, that'd be $4,000. One of the slides on our screen is, suggesting different options for an amount of money, and one of them is $2,500. So, I mean,
that's true.
We're not obligated to give a certain amount per student. We can give a modest amount if we feel like that's what we want to do.
It's good for everybody to get the grant, right? I mean, the fact that it is costing as much as it is one piece, but there is a significant grant available that would fund over half of the project in its totality, right? And so I do feel like if a letter of support and us looking like a partner is going to be impactful, that's value added to our community. And so I would appreciate the opportunity to do that. And if the money is the thing, then we can make it as nominal as you feel comfortable with. And the caveat that it's with ESSER funds, so that it would be a sign, once ESSER funds are gone, that we are not making any promises that we would do that.
Well, I will be brave and make a motion. I move that while ESSER funds are available, we make, is donation the right word?
Commitment.
A commitment of $750 per student for a total of $6,000 to the township of Kern.
Do you wish to add to that motion along with a letter of support because of all the costs?
Along with a letter of support for this infrastructure.
Is there a second? Seconding doesn't mean you have to approve it. You just have to open it up for discussion on this.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Okay. We have a motion and a second for $6,000 along with a letter of support. So let's have discussion on that motion.
What is the rationale of $6,000 out of curiosity?
I said $750 per student.
Oh, that was it, sorry, thank you.
Yep,
Okay, that's curious.
that was part of the motion.
Okay, no, that's fine, yeah, okay.
You know, if that feels like too much, I'm willing to amend that motion
Okay.
to a different amount per student.
Fair enough, okay, I was curious, that makes sense, thank you.
I'm more comfortable with 500 per student.
I
That would
think
be 4,000.
4,000.
And I think for clarity, when we, any final motion we pass needs to be just a dollar amount. We need to take the student language out of it. I think that makes things.
Yeah, just one-time commitment, right, I understand.
Right, one-time commitment for, what was your amendment, Tom? 4,000?
4,000.
I like everything but the fiscal aspect of it, honestly. I think we should support them as much as possible as far as putting the district's, what's the word I want to use for it now? The district is, has the best interest of all the students involved, and that we support this grant. But as far as fiscally responsible, we just can't commit any funds right now. I know if something comes along in the future, that we would reevaluate everything, of course, as well. So I don't think this is a dead end. This is just something I think that right now, with the information we have, I just don't see that it being efficient for across the whole board, everyone, that's all. That's,
Do I hear you say you wouldn't support any amount going to them, or would you like to?
no, ain't fiscal, not, correct. Support, but not fiscal support, correct.
So would I need to be the one to amend that motion then, since I made it?
No, no one would do that.
Okay.
You can amend it if you make the motion.
Yeah.
But,
We just have
or
to
goes to vote, yeah.
second on the amendment.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I would second that amendment.
Oh, I made a motion to amend it? Okay.
No, Tom did.
Oh, Tom did, I'm sorry.
Tom did.
Sorry.
Okay, now we have the motion for 4,000 and support.
That makes sense.
And I talked to members of 3 different school boards this week. No one has the answer. I believe that, I thought that Whitehall had passed. I think theirs was 5,000. I know Alma Center and Blair Taylor both meet tonight.
Alma Center's already gotten their grant, actually. They were very much on the forefront, and their district has like 2 townships, and Mr. Fisher was heavily involved in the entire process, and so I think they donated like $25,000, but they are more rural than we are, and they don't have the number of townships, so they've already successfully received their grant for their project.
Oh, for the town of Coran?
No, I'm sorry, Alma Center. You had said Alma Center was meeting tonight to discuss it, and I was just correcting that Alma Center has already successfully received their grant.
Okay, I thought they were also looking at money for this. I'm sorry.
No.
I have my district boundaries mixed.
The district of, for Marianne, is it Whitehall? It's Whitehall. Go ahead, Marianne, yeah. Blair Taylor.
Yeah, Blair Taylor, I believe, well, Alma Center is meeting tonight, but that's not one of the items they have on the agenda, I think. But Blair Taylor is the other one, yeah. So, I'm comfortable with 4,000.
I think we have to vote on the amendment, to approve the amendment, okay? We have a motion and a second for 4,000. So this is just the vote on the amendment, and then we'll still consider the vote final. Okay, so everyone in favor of the amendment, say aye. Aye. Opposed.
Nay.
Okay, now we have the.
I got nay on there, so record that, that's all. Just so you have to, I'm recording. I'll make sure you got it, that's all.
And now we need to vote on, we have an active motion and a second for $4,000. And support.
And a letter of support.
Yes. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed.
Now, can I make a new motion that's, but it passed already, right? This motion passed, we're done, okay, then we're done.
Well, you can move to reconsider.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not gonna do that though, right now, I think it's okay.
Okay. Thank you. Long conversation, but lots of information for consideration. Thank you very much.
Marianne, thank you so much for your time again tonight. I hope you have a fabulous time in Tennessee and that it's warm there.
Thank you. And I know that Curran will be very grateful for this partnership and this commitment. Thank you.
Okay, we are at 5.1 for gifts and grants.
Dr. Stevenson?
Sure, I just wanted to highlight a couple of gifts and grants. First of all, Mr. Gene Johnson, and I love that he put on his donation form, class of 77, so a proud Tiger alum. He is donating a handpan, drum box, and Native American flutes to both the middle school and high school music departments, as they're quite unique instruments. He knows that they will use them for some special music every once in a while, and so ones that will be shared between. PBS Wisconsin donated $5,000 to Julie Tieden's program, and they've got so many exciting things happening in their recording studio with the renovations already that they were excited to be able to expand some of their equipment budgets by that donation. And then finally, Gil Homestead, who's just been a very generous community member for a long time through his work with the Black River Area Foundation, heard at Walmart that there was a student that didn't have boots to be able to go play in the snow in the winter, and that really bothered him. So he called me the next day and asked if he could make a donation so that any kids that didn't have boots and snow pants or appropriate winter gear would be able to get them. And so he made $1,000 donation to help fill that need. And so again, our very generous community helping out where they see a need.
Thank you.
Any comments or questions on the gifts presented? I agree, very, very generous gifts that we are very grateful for. Is there a motion to approve?
I so move.
Seconded.
Okay, Tom and Troy. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Public comment, and Dr. Sullivan has said there's 4.
Yes, 4. So we have Barb Subtlebauer, and she's talking about COVID, and then on deck is Jeff Polzine.
I don't think we need to repeat our rules, but
Do we have them to put up on the screen? The open comment rules?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay, let's go ahead.
Jill, can you hear us?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, ready. Hey, well, hello everyone. Barb Settlebauer, I'm a taxpayer and I'm a concerned citizen, and I'm in a segregated room, number 205, because I'm not wearing a mask.
Obviously, just go to the school, put all business in there.
Okay. So anyways, my topic is on COVID-19, and there was a COVID-19 second opinion roundtable in DC, and there it was discussed as to what went right, what went wrong, and what should be done now, and what needs to be addressed long-term. Lawyer Tom Renz brought to the table data from the Defense Medical Epidemiological Database that he received from 3 whistleblowers who served in the military, and he did give their names. This is great data because it has the health records of the very healthy men and women in our military. So there is a gold standard there to go by. They look at reported health issues. They looked at reported health issues from 2016 to 2020 and took the average from those 4 years. And then they looked at reported health issues in 2021. 2 years into COVID-19 mandates and 1 year with vaccine mandates on the military. And here's what they found. Miscarriages. The average from the 2016-2020 was 400. In 2021, 4,000. It went up 300%. Birth defects, 10,000 was the average of those 4 years. 17,000 in 2021, 155%. Neurological issues, average 2016-20 was 82,000. In 2021, 863,000. That's 198% increase. All cancers, 3,080 was the average. 2021, 114,000. That's approximately 295%. Infertility in females, 471%. Infertility in males, up 354%. And then the coding for clinic and hospital visits was the average of 2016-2020 was 2 million. That's visits to the hospital and clinic. And in 2021, 21 million visits for clinic and hospital. That's a 1,051%. So after this report had come out, after that roundtable that it was discussed. The military says that the data from the 2016 and 2020 was wrong. They didn't say anything about the 2021, but that was wrong, and yet both were entered into the same database. Try and make sense of that. Let's get to the roundtable and ask ourselves, the board, what went right in these last 2, going on 3 years? What went wrong? And what should be done now? And what needs to be addressed for long term? Because they will slap another created virus just to keep us under their control and help us kill ourselves without them ever having to fire a shot. Thank you.
I'm assuming that this handout is from Barb. Yes, it does say exactly what she said. Thank you.
Deb Rosine is next, followed by Betsy Settlebauer.
Hi, I'm Jeff Pauldine, retired MD, and I'm thanking the board and Dr. Severson for excellent health policy guidance this school year as we prepare to scale back mask requirements. Dr. Severson explained in August 2021 that her goal was in-person learning for the full school year. So far, Black River schools have done that with the mask requirement. Melrose, Mindoro, and Alma Center with mask optional policies have both lost multiple school days due to excessive faculty absences. Jackson County for Education recently had a self-written article that claimed that Black River School District implemented failed COVID policy, that parents know what is best for their child medically. Let's examine the failed mask or COVID policy. If you or I had a child or grandchild with a heart defect requiring surgery, we might seek care at one of the world-ranked pediatric heart surgery centers, Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. We might not know what treatment is best for our child. We would trust the doctors to make their best medical decision in the office and in the operating room. Those same Rochester doctors and their colleagues are also going to make their best medical decisions for their own children when determining Rochester schools' health and mask policies. Rochester schools have had a mask requirement for this entire school year. They are just now preparing to scale back those requirements, just like Black River. Over the past year, Jackson County for Education has done their county, its students, its citizens, its school board a disservice by raising medically unfounded fears of mask wearing. Those fears have led persons on the fringe to threaten school board members. Those threats have led people who have considered a run for school board to not run, worried for their family's safety. Spreading unfounded fears has real and grave consequences for our society. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, Betsy Settlebauer, followed by Heidi Jacobson.
I got a quick handout. Well, she's handed out Betsy Settlebauer, Houston, Wisconsin, a concerned parent and taxpayer. First, I want to say I like the presentation from the K-5 staff members and stuff. It was great to see the kids, especially the ones without the mask. My only question is how much learning is lost because the kids cannot see the sounds that are formed and how they're formed. A few things I'd like to bring to the board's attention. Numerous times in the last 8 months, members of this board have repeatedly assured the public that they are nonpartisan. Yet, I don't believe that. A couple weeks ago, this billboard you're looking at was placed. And as you notice, Jackson County Public Schools are on it. Alma Center doesn't know about this either. And also, do you notice who sponsored the ad or the billboard? Jackson County Democrat Party. I've been at or listened to the past 10 board meetings, do not recall the board voting to allow a party to put the district on a billboard. So much for being nonpartisan. But maybe the superintendent agreed to this. I don't know. The second issue is the comments that Mary Jo Osmanowski mentioned in the paper, that the meeting that you're having here right now is a board meeting open to the public. I believe you should reread State Statute 120.11 and 43 that you quoted, along with the Wisconsin open meeting laws. and look at the part that talks about accommodating people with disabilities and public comment. We've had a mother sit outside all year long, except for in January, because you do not allow her into this building because of her disabilities. Since January now, you have a segregated people again based on fear into another room. So I want to thank you for reassuring us that you do not want public comment. If you valued opinions from your constituents, you would value public comments. If not at a board meeting, you'd be willing to have town halls where people can come and ask questions. Because sending emails, you don't get responses. You do not value public comments, especially opinions that don't go along with your narrative. And sending out a survey with vague questions on it is not seeking true input. Superintendent Severson and Mary Jo Rosmanowski and now Dr. Posey have accused Jackson County for Education as being aggressive, angry, and out of touch with reality when it comes to our kids' education and health. The district for the past 10 years has jumped on every bandwagon offering, especially if there's money attached. Jackson County for Education is simply a group of concerned parents and citizens that want evidence and research-based education. And you know what? There is such a thing. We also want to allow teachers to actually start teaching again, not just being told what and how to teach. Our district can't even teach basic reading and math, let alone all the extra stuff that you require from teachers. It's only this last summer did you approve an evidence and research-based reading program or Gilliam program. Guess what? That took too long, especially when this was offered up by public people 5 years ago. It's time to stay out of politics, go back to the basics, use evidence and research-based curriculum, and to value public input. It's not us versus you. We're supposed to be a team here. So I hope you look into the billboard, into who approved the district to be on this billboard, especially since you're nonpartisan. Thank you.
If I may make some corrections, please, before we move to the next speaker.
Yes, please, Shelley.
I did not affirm any billboard. I am not aware of what Mrs. Settlebauer is talking to. I have never spoken publicly about Jackson County for Education. I'm not sure where that came from. And it was 3.5 years ago that we had our first teachers participating in the Orton-Gillingham training. So I just want to make a few factual corrections.
5 years ago,
Thank you.
I brought it up.
Okay, Patty,
To the
Patty
committee.
is next.
Thank you.
First of all, I'm Patty Jacobson, town of Manchester, and I'm a taxpayer. And I didn't intend to talk about COVID tonight, but I need to respond to Dr. Posey's statements. If any of you watched the 5-hour testimony at the Capitol, it's available on YouTube, and I hope that you will. There are highly trained medical specialists, academic research physicians, and male-trained research physicians that disagree heartily with how COVID has been managed. And I urge you all to look at them. These people have come forward at the risk of their licenses being removed and their ability to practice being taken away. We have never, ever done that in this society. The practice of medicine has always been open to healthy scientific debate, except for this one instance where these people were censored, shut down, taken off YouTube, and in many cases de-licensed. I just wanted you to think about that. Now I'll go on to what I was going to say. I'd like to acknowledge the wonderful teachers we have, because every time I interacted with any of the teachers, as a board member, they were wonderful. They were dedicated and committed to their students. And in no way am I critical of our teaching staff, nor has Jackson County for Education ever criticized teachers. Teachers can only do what the administration plans for them and what board policy states they must, and they must go in the direction that the administration leads. For the past 10 years, that direction has been the same. More interventionists, more math specialists, instructional coaches, PLCs, and placing all of the responsibility for outcomes on instructional staff, and as an article in the paper said, leaving the learner out of it. I don't believe that's reasonable, and it certainly has not worked very well. We can't keep doing the same things, expecting the same results. The schools have gone on to usurp more and more of the responsibilities of families and parents. They're now providing social and emotional learning, mental health care during school days, and now health care. All of this may have been at the expense, and I think it probably is at the expense of the focus schools need to have on academics. And I'm hoping that someday we can get back to that. It's every single educational country, every educational system recognizes the importance of parents and families being involved in the process. Over and over, I hear parents being criticized for their lack of involvement. But I have yet to see the Board or the administration have an accurate and concise plan for involving patients, parents, and families. But when, in this past year, many parents have come forward, you don't see all of them here, I hear from them. They want to be involved, they want to finally be saying something about it, but criticized, belittled, excluded, and ignored. And the comments that have been made by Dr. Severson in the paper and on the radio have been directed at this group of people. So what suggestions do I have? I think you could have family forums. You could require parents to attend. I'm not sure what kind of a penalty, but that's what boards are for. They're supposed to figure these things out. There are multiple programs available to encourage families to attend and be involved in their children's education. And as you're going forward with the new math curriculum, you could do something as simple as choosing a math program that parents understand so they can help their children and not look dumb in front of them. That's all I have to say. I was trying to help my granddaughter with her math. And there's something about double doubles and triple doubles and all of this stuff. It made absolutely no sense to me. So at least consider that. And I thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
I have a letter also I'm going to hand out because I've been very concerned about standards-based grading. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm saying think about how you are going to do it. And I have some ideas in here that I've done some research on for you to consider.
Thank you. Is that it, Dr. Sullivan?
We have a letter, public comment that you guys all got to.
Yes, I do see that. Yes, thank you. Okay.
I just want to say something that I'm tired of being ridiculed and kicked to the curb by this group. I'm asked to be invited to the Jackson County for Education. Are they only a Facebook group? I really don't know. But I've asked to be invited so I can hear what they have to say. And Betsy, you just brought something up. I appreciate these teachers, the hard work they do, but then there's always a but. There's always a stinking negative attached to it. And I get tired of that. These ads in the paper, what do? Do you come to me? Do you talk to me? No, you say that the board does this, the board does that. No, I don't. You're lying in some of your ads, saying that I am blaming our low scores on the minorities and our poor socioeconomic status. Those words have never come out of my mouth.
Tom, we talked about this.
I know.
Our conversation.
Call to order. We're not having a conversation. And Tom, I appreciate your comments. We're going to be planning some future agenda items and some future meetings, and so we'll just calm.
So I'll just be quiet.
Well, actually, our policy for public.
I'm sorry, I got a little agitated there.
No, it's okay. I think you're speaking how many feel. Our policy for public comment is to listen. If we can certainly have response time, and I'm going to propose like having a meeting to consider changing our public comment time so we do have time to respond. Because I too agree some things are not true. And we're not to be going back and forth. Okay? So we'll
I'll just be quiet.
Take a breath. Take a breath.
I'll just be quiet. You all know my heart issues.
No, we'll we'll certainly be addressing a future time to discuss that, but thank you everyone.
Okay,
let's all take a breath.
You had a public comment somewhere, you said?
What?
You addressing the letter from Ms. Leadholm? Is that what you're doing next, or is that?
No, that's for us. We can
okay.
receive public comments written, virtually, or in person. I mean, that's what our policy is.
Sure.
It is. We are hybrid when it comes to that. Most school districts don't do what we do. So I like to have the transparency of having all those available, and we as a board do. Okay, let's move on to the WASB convention report. The convention was held in Milwaukee in January, and you have my report in front of you. I'll just highlight. There was a lot of praise for actually having an in-person convention during a pandemic, as well as offering the virtual option. As Region 6 Director, I attended all the general sessions, plus was involved in policies and resolutions, delegate assembly, exhibit hall responsibilities, and that just means I have assigned exhibits to visit and see how they're going, and then past presidents. And due to the COVID regulations in Milwaukee, many things were canceled, but most breakout sessions were available as planned. As far as the delegate assembly, all of the resolutions that you saw before us passed, and I do have the details on that. 189 districts were present physically, and 116 were virtual by voting. And I was surprised to see, Troy, your comment in your letter to the editor that you didn't have a chance to vote.
I did vote. No, I didn't. That was actually inaccurate. I put that. I didn't have a chance. I didn't have a chance to participate. I did vote for the delegate virtually. Yes.
Yeah.
I did vote for the delegate. That's the only thing I was allowed to participate in. So.
Well, you could have commented too, if you wanted.
I could have commented. I didn't feel a need because I think my point of view was being represented during that delegation there. That was accurate. Yes.
Okay. And then personal attendance. I attended a Grow Your Own Teacher pool, which was of personal interest to me because our CISA 4 is actually setting up a program. They've been working on it for a long time now to actually have a program for to license someone with a bachelor's degree and to speed up their licensing procedure. And CISA 6 was presenting where they've had this in place for quite a while. And the CISAs are all kind of working together. So like CISA 6 can do special ed, whereas CISA 4 is going to concentrate on K through 8, I believe. And I just had a real personal interest in that too. And then chaos to calm. You can imagine what that was about, but both subjects had a good personal connection to. So anyone else want to join in on convention report? Okay, Tom.
No, I don't have anything to say. I didn't make it 24 hours, unfortunately.
I'm glad you're here now.
Yeah, we're glad you're present. You know.
So, yes, my own comment was, if you were not familiar with it, I was, without being able, I did agree to mask, but I wouldn't agree. I'm not a vaccinated individual. And that was one of the conditions of entry, or it was testing, and I didn't choose to have me tested against my will. So, therefore, I was no longer allowed to enter. But Mary Jo did put me on the delegation board, and I did vote for on behalf of the district.
In Tom's absence.
Yeah, in Tom's absence. He was the original delegate. I was the alternate. I had to exercise that right. So that's what we did.
So you went down there though?
Oh yes, I was in Milwaukee.
And you stayed in the hotel?
I did.
And you registered for the event?
I did.
So you are intending to reimburse the district then?
No. I actually asked the board member of the WASB to actually allow me entrance, and they said that they wouldn't do that. So
but
I had the full intention of actually
participating.
Down there. It's the same thing as going in here as anywhere else. Is that legally I am allowed to go ahead and go to public presence, and there was a Milwaukee mask mandate in there, but the convention actually tried to exclude some members of participation, and therefore
Milwaukee had a mask.
Milwaukee had a mask mandate, but WASB had a testing mandate.
So
that is something that's intrusive.
If we have a teacher that goes to a conference, right? They register for a conference, they go to the conference, and masking is required.
Masking was
and so we're not going to require them to repay the district.
We're going to require what the district that they're representing actually has for rules. And masking was the rule at this point, and therefore anything beyond that.
So what I'm saying is if we have a teacher and we send them to a conference, and masking is required, and this teacher knows that before they go. So they sign up for the hotel room, sign up for the conference, go, right? But they don't attend.
Well, I attended. I actually went in there and talked to Mr. Bentley myself. Go ahead.
So they knowingly, so we have a teacher, right? Hypothetically, we have a teacher that signs up for a conference, knowing that masking is required, and they go down there, and they're unwilling to mask, and so then they don't attend. We're not requiring that teacher to repay.
No.
So then, if.
Is this standard policy?
Is this policy of some sort that you're
Well-
talking about, Brad, or is this more of an ethic question?
Well, so then if we have a teacher that knows that masking is not required, and they sign up for a conference, and they end up not going because masking is not required, and they're opposed to that, we're not requiring that teacher to repay that then either.
I would believe if it's a health protocol, it's especially one that's actually not legal, I would actually question it, yes. No matter what it is, whatever it may be. If it says you have to wear a purple shirt, I mean, that doesn't matter. But
So what if it is? So what if it?
where do we draw the line then as a district that we say that what condition do we accept and what don't we accept? Do we accept what the board has decided as a whole, that it's a condition? There's no vaccine mandate.
So here's my question.
Testing mandate to attend a board
You
meeting.
knew before you went down there. You knew before you registered, right?
No, I registered way back in September,
So
honestly.
you didn't know that masking and testing was required when you signed up.
Not when I originally signed up, no, that's correct. They had revised it by January 3rd.
I don't believe that to be
But there
true
was-
because
well-
I looked at going and as long as I can remember seeing the information on the website.
There was no mandate, there was no requirement by the WASB until January 30. You can look on their website if you'd like to. That was the requirement. They said they were in person pending local mandates. And that's what it said when we initially signed up back in September. And actually Marty had signed me up way back then, and we actually have the emails to show you if you'd like to. But I actually signed up for the breakfast and the conferences, the workshops I wanted to attend as well.
Troy, I've got to think this is $800. Maybe
I agree
more.
that it's silly that we can't go in and actually participate.
No. Troy, you signed up. So
Yes, as a representative.
I received questions from taxpayers about this.
Of course.
You signed up knowing this was the standard you had to meet.
Knowing that was the expectation of that at the moment, when I originally signed up, no, but it changed as the time went on. And I also
so
thought,
as soon as you found out that it changed, did you try to back out of the conference?
no, because I still wanted to attend.
Okay, but you knew you weren't going to be able to.
I tried to attend.
Okay, so every time a teacher does this from now on, we can no longer ask them to repay the district.
If they have the intention of participation and they are not allowed to, then that's not on the teacher.
I can't judge intention. I don't know if you intended to attend or not.
Of course I did. I didn't go
Troy,
there
it
for
looks
fun.
to me like you intended to write a letter to the editor falsifying information because you just told us it was inaccurate.
No, I
you
said
took
that-
a 3-day vacation.
I don't think
you took a 3-day vacation on the school district's dime.
That's not true at all. I was there at the hotel the whole time trying to get in. I did leave on Thursday evening because I was no longer, I attempted to go in there on Wednesday and Thursday. Went to talk to Mr. Minniehouse. I talked to Ms. Rosmanowski as well there. And
So
I
you
did.
conducted how many hours worth of business at the cost of $800 to the district?
I was there as a delegate, alternative delegate. That's
Right.
why I was there.
You can do that virtually without registering.
What's that? You can't, without registering as far as participation?
You don't have to register to attend. You can still vote.
I was, okay, so basically, my intention is
So
not good enough
what you
for the
did,
board then, okay.
what you did would have cost the district nothing, but instead it cost $800.
If they wish to take it out, the board can decide that, it's fine.
No, I'm asking you to repay it as a matter of ethics.
As a board, as a matter of ethics, we have no right to actually demand anyone do anything against their will, as a board. We don't.
Okay.
It wasn't a requirement to go.
It wasn't a requirement to go, but there was asked,
and
I did ask to attend, and that's.
Gil Homestead just gave us $1,000 for boots.
Yes, I understand.
And
I
you set
appreciate
that
it.
amount on fire.
Of course not. So you want to start saying that everything I do now is a
No,
negative to the district and everything is.
Troy, this is not personal.
It is personal.
No, it's not.
It is.
If a teacher did this, I would demand they repay it.
Okay, and as a board,
If
that's
I
the
did
board's
this-
right to do that.
If
fine
I
with
did
the board
this,
decides
I would
that.
expect to repay it.
If the board decides that action, I will.
No, I'm asking you to do it, Troy.
I understand what you're saying, but I do not agree with what you're saying.
So,
I
you're
comprehend.
willing to say to all the taxpayers that we represent, that's a teacher's classroom budget
I understand
for the
that as
year.
well. I understand that there's a lot of frivolous money that we spend in the district. We can go through the expense report if you'd like to.
Okay.
Okay, let's get
But
back
that's
to
not-
the
that's not-
WASB
exactly.
convention
We're
report.
not
Let's-
getting anywhere.
we're-
Okay.
Okay, Jill and Shelley also attended. This is a joint education convention with the district administrators as well as the business officials. And as far as my report too, I'd just like to add that networking is the most important thing that I get out of being around. 2,300 people were there, and we're able to pull it off in person with those regulations. And did either of you have anything to add on your time there?
I would just share that I also enjoy the networking. It's very nice to see some district teams there, right? When you get to interact with other districts that are either similar or completely opposite, and just talk about the similarities in our successes and our challenges and our local political challenges. It was reassuring to hear from many throughout the state that they're having very similar conversations. It doesn't make them easier, and it doesn't make them us come to a positive resolution any faster, but it was just good to hear from others and how they're managing and trying to still elevate their staff and their students during these trying times.
I would add too, nobody mentioned it, so I'll just add the piece about the trade show that's there, the vendor show. There are aisles and aisles and aisles of vendors, and not necessarily all that we work with, so it's nice to be able to spend some time walking through there and learning about new products or new ideas or new software or whatever it might be, just to keep yourself in check on what's out there, at least to have some of that. But also attended the general session. Did go to one about having a student on the school board, but actually when you get into the session, it was more like having when we had student senate come report to us, and so they weren't actually on the board and sat at the board meetings necessarily. So, cybercrime, a lot of fun stuff to talk about as well, and I had the opportunity to meet with a lot of our advisors and reps that I work with as well, and talk about how we want to fund OPED differently in the district and things like that too. So I agree, the networking, I mean, that's the first time I've seen a lot of people in my shoes as well. So it's nice to talk to others across the state.
It's been a long couple of years. When you talk about the exhibit hall, I did have some assignments of visiting a few exhibitors and getting their spin on how things were going. And I was so impressed with one that was assigned to me that had the film that you added to a window to make it bulletproof, and I'm gathering all the information. This is so economical and everything. I take it to Shelley and Jill that night, and we've done that. Just like and then I recall discussing that among the safety issues, but it was just like here I thought I was really having something innovative and new. But yeah, I agree too that the networking is the most valuable. Okay. We'll move on to calendar and graduation for 2023.
Right, so included in your packet was the draft 3, is the one that was the long favorite. Just to remind everybody the process that we go through, we send out an invitation to anyone in the district that wants to help create that calendar, and then they all come together and we give them parameters, like we need 177 student days, there's 191 teacher contract days, we need 8 PD days, like we give them those parameters, and then the parameter that we can't start before September 1. You may recall that because of COVID, there was some flexibility in when we started our school year this year, and so we started August 30th and got 2 days in prior to that September 1. And it seems silly, but that makes a real big difference when you're trying to create some space for a 3-day weekend, just some of those little short breaks that happen throughout the year. So they came together, we talked a lot about a week-long spring break versus not, and we had 3 different options to choose from, and overwhelmingly, this was the winner. I lost my train of thought for a moment. There was an option to apply for a waiver to start early this coming year, but because of our construction projects, we did not feel it was, we might be down to the wire, we didn't want to cut that wire any shorter by starting early this year. So knowing we could start till September 1, our choices were really pretty limited. And as is very appropriate, the class of 2023, is several parents have already called asking for when that graduation date is. A few years ago, we did a survey, and the winning item from families, we invited at that time 8th grade through junior parents, and the Friday of Memorial Day weekend was the winner, and so that would put it on May 29th of 2023. So that is our recommendation to the board.
26, Shelley.
What?
26.
May 26th.
Sorry. I'm sorry. I thought I looked up just before. I must have still at the wrong year. I apologize.
Any discussion on the calendar? Hearing none.
Does anyone have an opinion as to how long we go before we survey parents again? It's been, last year was probably our first Friday night because the previous year we weren't able to because of COVID. So we probably still have 2 years of parents that were in the high school the last time we surveyed. But
I mean, yeah, we need to do it on a semi-regular basis. I don't know what that means.
Well, if you took a poll of 8th through juniors, when does that 8th grade graduate?
I was trying to remember, we did a poll, I think 2020 was supposed to be the first year we did Friday night. I will go back and look at our calendars, but that's what I believe. And then it didn't happen until like August, so moot point, but I believe that was our first year. I'll go back and look at that date.
So you maybe just want to do it every 4 years and make sure that that 4 years is the year before that, a particular graduating class would be affected by it.
I think families like to have anticipated what, a kind of a traditional time.
Right.
Any more questions on the presentation of the superintendent?
How many additional, how many days can we miss in this proposal until you have to start making up instructional minutes? Did I ask that correctly?
Sure, so we don't usually get into those weeds until each of the buildings sets their lunch hour schedule and their recess schedule, because all of that minute report that we do for DPI gets down to that level of detail. And so honestly, at the beginning of the school year, we know what we're going to intend for our schedule, and then we find out second graders take way too much time to get to the lunch lines. We need to increase their lunch hour by a little bit. And so that's why that calendar report changes just a bit. It sounds minor, but if you take 2 minutes a day times 177 student days, you're looking at, hours over time. And so we are not planning on any bell changes the beginning of the day or the end of the day. So that leads me to believe we're going to have a decent cushion this year. We had the 4 snow days plus the 3-hour early releases, and we're still not in jeopardy of being short. And so I'm going to say that we're going to likely be in that ballpark, but we don't lock down to those actual minutes of passing time in the hallway and all of that stuff. That spreadsheet is super detailed about the number of minutes. So,
thank you.
Yeah.
Any more questions? Comments? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve as presented?
So moved.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Dr. Severson. Move on to perception survey review.
Well, I put a document in your packet that had the link to all of them, and I guess I would just ask you, what is your preference this evening? We're at 2 hours, and we're got a lot in front of us, so you have all that data. I asked Jill to get the SurveyMonkey open, so if you want to look at one or the other, or if you have any questions or overall thoughts after reviewing it yourself, I'm wide open to how you would like to manage it.
Is there a particular item someone would like to talk about, or should I have a chance to review?
I hope all the links worked for you. Yes. It said I could share. Okay, good.
I think this is probably worthy of some study later. I don't want to, again, we're at it's 2 hours already, unless someone does it.
If we would have a particular item, maybe we can put it on future agenda item in a particular order. Okay, next would be discussion of the district meetings, live stream, and recordings.
Yeah. I brought that up only because the last board meeting we had, the sound quality, for anybody tried to review it later on, was difficult. And that was part of it. That's basically when you're in here, sometimes you can't hear correctly. And I know Shelly's outside the room right now, and so is the quality improved this time? I mean, it has to be used for the sound quality aspect of this right now.
I'm not on the live stream. I'm on Zoom, so I can hear you all very well.
That's true.
But again, I'm not on the live stream.
Okay, because last time the live stream was really hard to understand what's going on. So, and when we do that as a service as a board, I think we stream out, and that's what part of that was, is just the quality of the sound sometimes in this room only for some reason is really difficult. So I was hoping that we could work with and make sure we can keep the sound quality high for people who can participate, or at least listen in on it anyway from a distance. They don't participate, I should say, in this live stream. But there is live streams that we talked about too when it comes to how the board handles public comment and how basically a lot of the issue is. You test it out for me? Somebody's got to go down. Somebody's listening right now. It's working. That's awesome.
Troy, I would offer, I
Yes.
think the difference is we're using the speakers on the ceiling.
Okay.
And so I think there's a lot more volume in here.
Sure.
Right? Otherwise, they were just getting a speaker off at the table.
Right.
So I think perhaps, hopefully that's.
I hope that's all it was. Yeah, that sounds like it was. That's fun to hear. The other thing is we don't have any best practices when it comes to how do we handle public comment on a live stream video. That was a big issue a couple weeks ago. And I don't have a comment about how it was good or bad. I'm just saying we don't have any policy that says how we do that because the school district can only, correct me if I'm wrong, Shelley, please, that we can't edit commentary, we can't post commentary, we can only share what was actually on the video. And that's where it gets difficult. Is that correct?
So let me just back up a second. So it was a Facebook Live event, and I'm gonna, get in the weeds a minute on the difference, because a live stream, people don't get to comment. A Facebook Live event is an event that we intentionally use so that people would be able to ask questions of the candidates during the forum, and I'm assuming that's what you're talking about, because that's the only other Facebook Live event that I can think of. So what the district is responsible for, before you post an event, you can either turn comments off or you can have comments on. The very purpose of the Facebook Live event was for people to be able to ask questions from where they were. So we certainly needed comments on. So it was, I owned it, and I hope you all believed it. I am not that Facebook savvy, so that night that night I didn't. I was not monitoring the comments. I received several phone calls during the day on Tuesday with some very disappointed people with some commentary that they felt was highly inappropriate to be on the district's Facebook page. And some of them said, it looks like you're endorsing it because it's on your district Facebook post. And so I asked our attorney, and she said, you have no legal obligation to even post that video afterwards. You could have done the live event and taken the whole thing down, but you must archive it. So it is a public record, 100%, and it needs to be archived. I didn't know how archive worked, and that is not my expertise. And so the Tuesday evening, after getting yet another very disappointed staff member phone call over some of the comments, I reached out to our attorney and I just said, okay, I don't have to keep them, right? And she just said, no, you don't need any comments on it. What we can't do is decide this comment's okay, this comment is not. That is censorship. So either comments are on or comments are off. And so I tried to take the video link, and so in my house I did that. I made the video link and I made a new post, and it had some of the verbiage that said I'm reposting it without the comments on, blah blah blah, all that stuff. So I did that for a moment, and then I went back and I actually had my husband check it on another device, like, does this work? Yep, he checked it. And then I went to delete the original post that had all the comments, and I should have known but didn't. That made the new post invalid. So then it was gone. I immediately emailed our text at BRF.org and said, oh, help me, I lost it, I'm not sure what to do with this. I'm sorry, blah, blah, blah. So it was, that was Tuesday, I don't know, the next day around noonish, I think I finally connected with them and they said, we found the video again, we have it. So the comments exist as a public record. If somebody wants to do an open records request to get them, they can. If somebody wants to post those comments on their personal Facebook page, they are welcome to do whatever they want. Clearly, people post frustrations with us on their personal pages, and that is their choice. But if it's a district page, and we have district staff members and students within our district who are feeling marginalized in any way by the comments that were on there, I don't think that that's our responsibility to give the community that kind of a open forum to share that. The point of that forum was the live interaction, and that part was captured for the candidates. And so I made that decision. You're right, there's no policy, but it's not unlike if somebody had written a bunch of inappropriate things and posted it on our wall at school, I would take it off so that another community member who came in didn't see that on our wall and think that it was okay. So that was my decision making, and I would still stand by it. The forum served a purpose, and that's great. And I'm glad the video was able to be salvaged. That was my error in doing that. But I don't think the district needs to keep negative comments about our staff members and our students if we want this to be a place where people want to work and a place where kids want to go.
So I guess the best practices would be then to have no comments on anything we live stream then. Is that, because we can't.
Then we can't use that as a forum. I don't understand why our end result now isn't acceptable.
Because, well, the end result now is you post on a personal Facebook or YouTube page right now. It's under your name anyway, which I appreciate, by the way, I do. The issue is though that if we're gonna have comments, we have to respect all comments, even if they're negative, because we don't have the right to censor the public at large. We do, I mean, it is a school district's responsibility to limit students, honestly, comments, and especially that applies inside the building and also online when it comes to the school district website or any kind of anything the proper or anything the school district uses as a resource for public comment or public input. That the difficulty is, where do we go when we decide that we do another event? If it's another, it could be graduation, it could be something mostly innocuous, but it may incur something that we don't, that not all of us appreciate. So where's our best practice? So I'm not saying that, all I'm saying is that we want to discuss this in more detail, or are we just going to let it fly and hopefully nothing happens again? It'd just be nicer to have something that we say, this is what we're going to do, and this is the parameters we use, and this is where, from now on, we'll try to keep this archived, we'll try to keep it, we're going to have commentary, we're going to say that the comments do reflect the view of the district, if it's something that's open, or do we talk about just having no comments in this situation, where if you want to comment, there's another resource to use. That's all I'm saying is, and we don't have to do anything about it, I just want to know the board's input on that, that's all. So we don't have another not questionable, but people question sometimes when things get removed out there in that period. If something's deleted, they want to know why. That's all it was, and that's where I think a lot of that stuff was asking, like, why do we do that? And you had a reasonable explanation. I'm not saying anything about that. I'm just saying, do we want to avoid that situation again? That's all.
What are the wishes of the rest of the board?
I mean, I think Troy's bringing up a few things, wanting policy, considering public comment as well as the live streaming and recording, and maybe policy committee can actually have a conversation about if we want to move forward.
Something like that, yeah, policy or, yeah.
Does anyone else have any?
No, I think I don't think we can solve it tonight.
No, I'm not asking to solve anything tonight. I just wanted to bring it up.
We can put it on for future agenda.
Future agenda, okay.
I actually put it on policy committee if that's okay. I feel like that's where it's at.
Where I wrote it down to Shelley. Thank you. Anything else? Move on.
I just want to clarify one more time. Nothing has been lost. It is always archived. Our entire social media is archived. So we have not broken any public records laws. It is all archived. It's just a matter of we want it front facing or not.
Okay, thank you. Move on to COVID mitigation and procedures. Can we receive that with the day here? Everyone's got that? Okay. Recommendation.
So the admin team and nurse Elizabeth Johnson met today, and we are prepared with a recommendation for the board. I sent it out to you earlier today. What we are suggesting is that the wearing of face coverings becomes a family choice beginning Tuesday morning. So that is a little bit messy because it's getting quite late. I don't send school messengers out past 8 o'clock as a pretty hard rule, and so I don't know that we're gonna be able to tell everybody. However, the team today felt pretty strongly that if the board makes the decision tonight, it's going to travel to enough people that trying to enforce it tomorrow would be absolutely painful. So I will do a call that goes out tomorrow morning. However, that's going to be a little sketchy because people are anticipating a snow day. I'm not saying there's going to be a snow day. We'll see what Mother Nature brings, but I also can't call first thing in the morning because it's going to be really Yeah, isn't it close timing? So, I don't know if we want to change our recommendation to the end of the day tomorrow, just so everyone has that opportunity. We can certainly talk about that. But we are saying with the exception of our school buses, that federal mandate on transportation is in, that order is in effect until March 18th, 2022. We have no idea nor control over whether that is extended or not. The rest of so the masking kind of stands alone, and then we also are recommending some changes to our other mitigation protocols. I don't know if you'd like to discuss masking first, or if you'd like me to go on to the rest of the document.
Did everyone have a chance to review the statistics on how we arrived here? Okay, go ahead. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so if a student should test positive, we are saying that that student is out of school for 5 days after that positive test result. So positive test result is day 0, then it's 5 days forward. And when the student returns to school, they must wear a face covering for days 6 through 10. If the student refuses to wear a face covering for days 6 through 10, then they must stay isolated at home through day 10. That is in alignment with our neighboring districts and certainly with best practices through Jackson County Public Health and through CDC. For staff members that test positive, we're saying that they are out of school for 5 days after the onset of symptoms or that positive test if they didn't have symptoms beforehand. Again, the date of symptom onset or the test would be day 0, and they're home through day 5, and they would be required to wear a face covering on days 6 through 10. When it comes to household close contacts, this is one that we probably had the most discussion about, and I absolutely respect and appreciate Elizabeth Johnson over the monumental work she's done the last couple of years, but this one makes her twitchy. And the admin team just felt strongly that we're taking this leap forward. This one gets gets messier because Jackson County Public Health is not contact tracing the way that they used to. So we're saying now that if you are in a household and you have a family member that tests positive, we strongly recommend that you wear a face covering for 10 days from the positive test. And so we are not going to require unvaccinated individuals to stay home when they have a positive household case. That has been our past practice. Part of that rationale is because public health is no longer sending us the quarantine letters that they did, and so it would be very difficult for us to maintain that practice. We would rely on parents to let us know if they tested positive, and we'd have to rely on the home test that people are taking. And so since we couldn't apply the rule equitably across the system, we decided that we would strongly recommend they wear a face covering. Then we're saying students that exhibit symptoms, if they are on that COVID chart or exhibiting symptoms, they would need to be isolated for 5 days, or they could bring a negative test result or a doctor's note to be admitted prior to the 5 days expiring. So an example that was given is that a student was exhibiting symptoms, had congestion and cough, I think, went to the doctor, and the doctor diagnosed a sinus infection and did not COVID test, but sent a note saying this child is being treated for a sinus infection and is ready to come back to school. So that's why the doctor's note piece came in there as well. So if a student is ill at school, we would still ask them to be out for 5 days or bring a negative test result if they want to, or a doctor's note. And Accelerated Laboratory now has their rapid antigen test back. And so all students, staff, and their families are encouraged to use this resource once again. That is our recommendation at this time.
Any discussion?
Yes, basically my discussion would be about the exclusion protocol still for close contacts, because there's no contact tracing in the county. As far as there's not, it's not as a detailed contact tracing, is that better to say? And so therefore, is the school still keeping track of a detailed contact tracing then in the classroom? Because I know that there was and there's not been. What is the status right now where contact tracing inside the school? What's going on now? I don't know. Basically, is the county still active telling that one child has had positive and the teachers are going ahead and talking to that teacher to find out where the contact is, or are they just saying, okay?
We are still doing that, and then if you recall, we shifted our protocol from the phone calling to the emailing, and so absolutely, when we are made aware of a positive case, we still go and talk and find out who was a close contact to that student, and those families are still notified.
So that hasn't changed as far as that goes. Thank you.
That will change or will not change, I'm sorry.
No, that won't change, it sounds like, that we're still, that's, okay, I just wanna make sure I'm talking about the same thing.
Yep.
And so, and then basically then, so if they have exposure in the classroom, they have to just mask up or they have to leave? Is that the question?
If they have been exposed in the classroom, they are close contact in the classroom, the parent is notified so that they can watch more closely for symptoms and the student is not quarantined from school. That is our current practice and is what we are recommending moving forward.
And as far as face coverings go, that is still optional at that point, as long as they're not exhibiting symptoms, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. We're saying that those that have to mask are those that have tested positive from days 6 through 10, they would need to mask. That's what we're saying.
Okay. One last question that you might not know the answer to. Accelerated Labs, are they contracted to the end of the school year or is it indefinite at this moment?
It's indefinite at this moment.
Okay. And I have homework with the busing, the federal mandate has exemptions to school bus. As far as US DOT exists, I'm not sure it's a technicality right now. I'm not going to argue that, but school buses are considered outside of the US DOT's jurisdiction because they're usually covered by state. But the CDC has an overall mandate on transportation. And so as you're probably aware, other districts, in fact, it was in the news you shared with us today, which is basically the Clarendon district, the bus provider for the district, not the district themselves, has allowed mask optional on the buses. And I just...
And so you're absolutely right that Eau Claire did just do that. I am unsure legally if they have a leg to stand on, but their busing is not part of the district. It's a contracted service for them. They don't own them. It's a service they provide. And our legal counsel has advised us that we do fall under the mandate.
And correct me too, I understand our liability insurance requires us to follow the federal mandate as well. Is that correct, Jill?
Yes.
Any more comments?
The only couple families have expressed concern based not around removing the masking, is the speed at which we do, and that's they may choose to open enroll. I don't know if they will. That's one of my, I guess, two concerns. The other one is talking to some parents in other districts when they went mask optional, there was some bullying. And I guess I'm looking at the principals in the room. You don't need more to do, but that's just something, like many other bullying things, you need to keep your eyes on. But that was another concern that family expressed to me. So.
And so, Brian, honestly, if they're interested in open enrolling to a district that has a mask requirement, they're going to need to drive quite a ways.
Right. Absolutely. Well, and like we talked about Shelley Virtual, and I know that's not, we don't want to go down that path, but yeah.
Elementary virtual students is going to be a real challenge for us at this point.
No, absolutely, I understand. And I don't know how much of that's going to come to fruition.
Right,
but
it's good to consider.
Right, those are just, I just wanted to, those are some things families have expressed to me, so.
I had faith that we would get here eventually with these numbers, and it feels good. And I also hope that if a child and family have health issues, that it would be respected for masking when they're around. It feels good to get here, Shelley, these numbers, and for Jackson County, I'm glad.
And I guess maybe, pardon the pun, but the perfect storm is that we don't have school tomorrow, and that gives everyone 24 hours to respond. I'm sorry. I'll see myself out.
Do you know how many people are texting me that exact message tonight? Come on. All their neighboring superintendents. What are you thinking? What are you thinking? Stop it. Stop it.
Right, yeah.
So the last thing I had a question, what is the threshold what is the threshold set at for returning to face masking? Is there anything that's been discussed about that, or we haven't discussed it, which is okay too?
So,
As far as
I was thinking on the opposite end, I was discussing when can we be done with all of it. I didn't discuss when would we go back. So
That's fair.
I didn't spend a lot of brain power on that because I'm hoping never is that answer. We did talk about when can we be done with all of it, and Elizabeth feels strongly that there will be some messaging through CDC and the state health department and our local health department. And so we feel like this is already significantly less restrictive than where we have been. And so feeling like if you're healthy as a child, you're going to be coming to school, and if you're sick, you're going to be home. That feels like good practice for all the time, right? And we know that that's not always the case. And so we don't have a sunset for sure. Elizabeth is very confident that we will know when we're ready to be done with that. So there's no metric involved right now.
Okay.
Any more discussion?
Move to approve it as recommended then.
With the whatever date that we let them know.
Well, I was thinking, I guess, would the recommendation, it said tomorrow
Tuesday morning.
Tuesday morning, being effective 7 a.m. or whatever, do we need to put a minute on it?
So if I could just say this, and I know the principals are going to throw something at me, so it's probably good that I'm here. I'm concerned about if we lift the mandate once the kids are there, what if there's a parent who really wants to coach their kid up and say, I know it's not required anymore, but I really want you to wear it, and we don't give them the opportunity to do that. I'm concerned about that. You know, if we just say like at 7 a.m.
That's my exact thought, yeah, let the parents make that decision.
So we want to say Wednesday.
Wednesday at 7 then?
Well, we're supposed to end of the day Tuesday because it's already optional after school hours.
Yep. Final bell on.
Principals, I'm sorry, it just got late fast, so I apologize.
So the only issue you're gonna have that is the opposite spectrum, is if students don't wear a mask tomorrow, at the school tomorrow, are we gonna enforce that? And it's difficult either way.
It's going to be very challenging.
Exactly,
Reminders will be given as they always have been, right? You've not seen any student up for expulsion because they wouldn't wear their mask, right? So reminders will be given as always. We also recognize that the challenge on the buses is going to get greater as kids don't have to wear them during the school day as well. And so we had that conversation today. We'll do the very best that we can, just like we have all the way through.
Disposable mask consumption on the bus is going to go up significantly.
Yep, we just ordered many. March 18th can't get here fast enough.
So, restating my motion, as approved, or excuse me, as presented, with a implementation time of close of final bell tomorrow then, is that?
Thank you.
Perfect. I second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion?
As long as everybody's prepared to deal with if it was my child was going to school tomorrow, if he would, I would say, if the board approved it, I know it's a little theatrical, I'm not arguing that, but at the same time, I don't see what preparation you need to have. I mean, every district around us is already doing this for the last few months, most of them.
Well, there's some parents who are going to have the opposite reaction.
Agreed.
Who are going to be concerned, and we're giving them the courtesy of a heads up.
We
so that they can decide how they want to respond to that new procedure.
And now maybe all of us are hoping for a snow day tomorrow. Anyways.
That would be ideal.
Exactly. Yeah. Sorry, Shelley, I did that. I'm sorry.
I missed the last comment.
There's a lot of finger crossing relating to snow days back here.
Is that now power of the board? Is that what you just
Like it's snow, yes.
Motion, call it snow day?
Yes. They didn't hear you, Shelley.
Yeah.
Are you going to amend your motion and you are calling a snow day for tomorrow and taking that authority?
Amy's trying very hard.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to move forward with the COVID mitigation and procedures plan as presented, except putting it end of the day on Tuesday. Any more discussion? We're ready to vote. We'll go roll call. Troy?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Brad?
Yes.
And I'm a yes too. Thank you. Thank you very much. It was good to be here for that. Okay, we're going to focus on purpose, employment recommendations, there are none, but you want to say anything about substitutes and aides needed? Okay.
No, I have no information.
Okay, then we'll move on to the mid-year data review.
So don't we need to vote on employment recommendations?
Oh,
We gotta
no,
approve it,
there's-
don't we?
there's
That's
no
just
vote.
information.
There's nobody hired though.
There's no-
Oh, okay, gotcha.
All right, time out. So the board does not have to approve support staff hiring, just to be clear. So I give them to you for your information, but they don't need your approval.
All right.
Okay, ladies.
Yep.
Yes.
Sorry, I don't know, Shelley, hold on. Can we make you?
So this is our AGR report for achievement gap reduction that we do for Title I for the state. Combined, and it's actually going to be Forest Street, Red Creek, and the middle school. So we're going to just give you a short and condensed version of the report that we turn over to the state and how we do it. So we've got to identify the strategies, the instructional strategies. The state offers a menu of choices that we can choose. And so the ones that we have identified at Forest Street are instructional coaching and class sizes only at the kindergarten level. Okay, so our goal this year for math in kindergarten is that our students will increase the percentage of...
That was me.
Okay. The students are going to increase the percentage, of students at or above grade level by 20 percentage points as measured by the iReady diagnostic test. So they take this 3 times during the year. And at fall, we take this in October, we had 9% of students that were on or above grade level. So we took it at mid-year, and there are 27% of students that were on or above grade level. And our goal at the beginning of the year set by that was 29%. Obviously, we're going to shoot way above that. So fingers crossed that we keep that momentum going. And I'll talk about a minute of some of the things that we've got going on too. In first grade, same goal that we want to increase the percentage points by 20%. So in the fall we had 4%, and at mid-year we had 17%. Our spring or end of the year goal is 24%. One of the things that I want to point out is that when we look at previous years, it's not just that our students are increasing from fall to mid-year, but when we look in years past, we're also increasing from years previous. So our students are growing, which is an indication of that our instruction is also working. So for instance, and little differences make big differences. So last year, last year we ended our goal at 58%, and so that is what that's what we're aiming to be at as well in kindergarten, and we ended at 38%, and we started at 13% in first grade, so we exceeded that goal in math, and so we're hoping to exceed that growth goal. This next report is a new report in EduClimber that shows you a visual, maybe, right here. That just is a glimpse into students. So if you look at the left side, that's the beginning of the year assessment in DIBELS for all of the students in kindergarten and first grade in reading. And the right side is the mid-year progression. So the red is the students that are below the benchmark at that time of the year. Yellow means that they're in, I forget what the exact verbiage is, a strategic support group. Green and blue means that they're at or above grade level. And then that trajectory shows where they moved at from beginning of the year to middle of the year. And you can see that the ones that made that big swoop down, they did not do their testing. So that's that huge swoop.
Two questions. I love this graphic. This is the kind of stuff I've really been trying to get out of the other ones. So the two, the yellow and green line that go down to NA, well, and the intensive that goes to NA, those are students who did not take the mid-year test. Is that correct? Correct. Okay. And then is it possible in the report to kick out on either, on both sides, the number of students in each category?
I can do that, and our teachers can do that in their reports within the EduClimber system.
It just doesn't show that in the graphic?
It doesn't show that in this particular graph. I just think it's a nice visual to show what we're doing.
When you're in the system and you hover over top of it, you can see the numbers.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just trying to get my head wrapped around how many numbers of students.
Yep. And so I'm going to go into a little bit more detail on this one. So, and before I go into reading, I know that this one's a reading. Before I dive any deeper into that, though, I'm going to back up a step and just talk about math. So, we are looking at a new math curriculum, but in the meantime, we've also got some really exciting math interventions that we are using at all levels. Tara Prestwood has really taken on an intervention called Advantage Math Recovery, and she has taken a lot of the principles and practices and did little short bursts of instruction with our teachers to help our teachers boost the math instruction practices within the classroom. And they're fun, engaging activities. So when students are standing in line, for instance, we at Forestry, our students need the foundational skills in math, just as they do in reading. And so in math, it's about counting forward and backward and identifying numbers. And so when you're lining up, let's start counting from 17. Can we start counting from 17 and then count forward and count backward? And very simple things that really lay the foundation for counting, for identifying numbers. And those things also help for the foundations of addition and subtraction, which also later on lead to multiplication and division. So exciting things happening. So in reading, in kindergarten, our goal, we use DIBELS for the assessment. It's not the iReady one at Forestry, we use DIBELS. And so our goal is that at least 55% of our students will meet the assessment criteria to be placed on or above grade level for phoneme segmentation fluency. That is being able to break apart the discrete sounds of words. In the fall, we had 12% of our students that were at or above grade level. And at mid-year, we had 52% of our students at or above grade level. Our goal at the end of the year was 55, and we are knocking that out of the park. So obviously we're going to increase that goal significantly. And last year, just for a frame of reference, we ended the year with 85% of our students meeting grade level benchmark. So we're hoping to not only achieve that, but exceed that as well again. And this is the second year that we've had this goal. In first grade, this is the first year we've had this goal, so we're kind of upping the ante. We went with a little bit more rigorous goal. Our goal for first grade is that at least 55% of our students will meet the assessment criteria to be placed on or above grade level in the correct letter sounds component of the DIBELS assessment. At the beginning of the year, 26% of our students were on grade level, and at mid-year, 25% were on grade level. And this really baffled me because I was like, what is going on here? And I went a step further and I went and dug into the cut scores for this. And so this graph is a little bit deceiving when you look at it based on the categories that DIBELS gives you, that intensive, strategic core, and above the core. When you break it apart by the cut scores that they give you, you can see orange is the beginning of the year assessment and gray is the middle of the year assessment. You can see that we are actually pulling kids from that left-hand category, the lowest score group, and we're pulling them over. So they are making progress, and they're not quite over there, but they are growing. And also of note is that the mid-year and the end of the year scores are very close.
So they have to make, students in first grade have to make a huge leap from the beginning of the year to the middle of the year, and then a small leap from the middle of the year to the end of the year. I don't remember what the exact numbers are. Off the top of my head, I should have wrote those down, I apologize. But they have to move, I think it's like 17 to like 52, and then 52 to 57. So they're gonna stay within that orange box at the end of the year. But I have worked with, not just me, but our teachers, our coaches, our interventionists, have just recently sat down and worked with Dr. Sullivan and Nikki Creamer, our literacy coach, and really looked at the students who have not made a ton of progress, and we've identified our next steps and how we're going to move those kids forward. I'm really excited to dive into that work. And we do have target time going on, and we've got groups that are aimed at meeting their particular skills and their needs. So yeah, I think that is it for forestry. Do you guys have any questions before I turn it over to Ricky?
Thank you.
All right, thank you. I know the Red Creek section gets long because we're looking at iReady reading and math. And so I'm gonna walk you through the first grade level, and you've already received this, I believe, in your packet. So I'm not gonna walk you frame by frame. Jill, can you put it back so that we can see all the, I want you to see the notes, because I did put in our last year's scores just for your reference. What do you want to see? I just want you to close out a full screen. Oh, unpresent, please. Unpresent. Escape. Just escape. Or is it PDF? Okay. I'm sorry.
No,
well,
it's fine.
We can.
I can see them on mine. I can say them very quickly if you, that would be helpful. Last year, fall, winter, spring was 13, 25, 45.
Okay, so let me walk you through. Last year I gave you the pie chart with the 3 colors, but now iReady has broke it down so that you can see the above and significantly above, and then you can also, well, there aren't any on this one, but you'll also see the significantly below with the slashes in the red, but second grade didn't have any. So yes, you can see the last year's scores down in the notes, the fall, mid-year, and end of year, okay? And so we also want to grow 20 percentage points the number of students that are at or above. So we have 2 goals for every grade and every subject. How many kids are at or above, and what is their growth? So this is the at or above. So we started with 15. In the winter for second grade reading, we jumped to 33%. We've got 2 percentage points to hit our goal. So we're super excited about that. Last year at this time, we're at 25% of the students at or above. So then this is our at or above, and then we also have our growth goal. And we decided down at the bottom, adequate progress means 80% or higher of their growth goal. And so at winter, we were at 38% of our kids were on track to meet that typical growth goal. And so our goal in the spring is 50%. So you can see last year at this time we were at 32%, and we grew to 58. Is there any questions? Because otherwise all the other slides are going to be in the same form.
And I know this has been explained to me before. So the growth goal.
Yep.
So if I am if I'm a student in the red, which is it intensive? Like
Yeah, it's like 2 grade levels behind.
Yeah, 2 grade levels behind. So
Yep.
if I am in that and I have a higher possible capacity for growth, is that right? So when I see this large number, this 31%, we're over 100 plus on the growth goal. those are the students likely that started in the red that are advancing very quickly? Am I
Not
Nicole's saying no, I'm not.
That typical growth is gonna, and Shelley, you're really good at this piece too, but it's showing you the amount of growth a student needs to eventually get caught up to grade level. So yes.
Or can I stop you?
Yep.
Let me just stop you for a second. So, first, I think part of what you're getting at is every student does not have the same growth goal. So your growth goal is determined by the metrics in the system based off of your age or your grade level and where your initial score is. So that makes logical sense, right? If you start 2 grade levels below and you grow the same as somebody who started 2 grade levels above, you're never going to close that gap. So if you score lower initially, you are expected to make more growth. And so to your previous comment, yes, a student who scores 2 grade levels below, in order for them to reach what typical growth is for a student that scored 2 grade levels below, it's going to be a heck of a big number compared to a student who's at an above grade level.
It's a straight statistic. So at each score, like where a kid scores, gets calculated out, like this many kids scored there, and then they average out for two.
So the slope. So the slope of the growth graph is equal. It's just where on the graph you start.
No, it's will be different depending on where you start.
Okay.
The target's the same. Right?
Yes.
Okay. Your target's the same, so your slope is going to change depending on where you start.
Okay.
Yeah, and to be honest, that's what intervention is all about, right? Those people that need that additional dose. So core instruction, we need to get to the point where we're meeting 80 to 85% of our kids' needs in core instruction, and then that's what intervention is for, to increase the slope of those kids that are still deficient.
Laura. I know there's 2 assessment gradings going on. There's DIBELS and there's iReady. Is that correct?
Yes.
Because the second grade, iReady says that we have a 33% 2 grade levels behind, but DIBELS shows we have 50% actually students that are on at grade level. If you go back to where Melanie presented here.
That was a different grade level.
Yes.
But it's first grade versus second grade, isn't it though? I mean, first graders right now, as of last year.
Next year we'll get them.
Right,
yeah,
next year.
for kids.
So, but the second graders this year are first graders last year. Last year, you pointed out that there was 13, 25, and 45. Is that correct? So I know that's for the second graders
And they're
last year.
measuring 2 different things. This is more an all-inclusive literacy score.
Okay.
DIBELS is super specific for one foundational skill concept.
I appreciate what you're saying. I just, where are we missing why is iReady such a different assessment, I guess? And you kind of answered that a little bit, but the thing is, it's not reflecting maybe what the efforts you guys are putting into it, is what I'm saying too, because right now, it's showing that if you come into it at the beginning of the fall and you're having a 50% at grade level, well then maybe we're not, either the assessment's not accurate or what we're doing in the first grade level is not.
Measuring different things. They're measuring different things entirely. So if you look at the iReady scores, it is talking about their composite reading. And if you look back to the DIBELS from forestry, it says correct letter sounds. And so I think it would be helpful. I think Dr. Sullivan already shared something about DIBELS and all of the different components that you can assess using DIBELS. These were the high leverage ones that the building chose to set their building goals on, but there are a lot of different assessments within that name of DIBELS. So those 2 assessments aren't really interchangeable at this time. And we don't do iReady with our youngest kids right away in the fall.
I think I'm going to get to a slide for our building wide that's going to break down what is encompassed in our iReady reading scores.
Thank you.
I think that'll help.
Okay.
So I am not going to go through all these, but I do encourage you to peek at those notes because it was pretty exciting, some of the growth. There are some grade levels that were already meeting their goals at this point. So that was super exciting. I wanted to get down here to our overall reading, okay? So this is all of Red Creek 2.5, but it's the same goal. It's how many of our students are at or above grade level. And so now you can see where the significantly below comes in with the dark red. But I love this graph because you can quickly see where we're making the gains. And I know the board is always interested in what about that top end group of kids? Where are they going and how many, what kind of growth are those kids seeing as well? So this is pretty and notice that last year we were at 31% of our kids were at or above, and now we're at 40. So we are seeing the gains.
So you're gonna see almost an exponential, hopefully, if the dibbles,
Yes.
if the core structure, that the
Yes.
core rate is working properly, there should be an exponential
Yes.
increase of reducing the gap.
Slow gradual change.
And
Yes.
we've already, some of our second grade teachers left, but they've already seen it. When those kids came from Forest Street and they started doing the CKLA lessons, those were some of the ones you saw, the kids were already in tune to that. And so, whereas in the past, it felt like we were making up and having to really slow down, the kids were right there ready to go. So this was our overall at or above reading. This is the one, Troy, I thought you'd be interested in. This breaks down that reading by domain. And so you can see the phonological awareness, the phonics, the high frequency words, vocabulary, comprehension, literature, and comprehension informative text. So that gets significantly more difficult too in the skill as you go down.
Yeah, like you said, the chronological awareness in the winter is phenomenal, like
Yeah.
you said.
Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah.
So where we're working, we're actually seeing gains,
Yes.
and that's what, okay, so that's,
Yes.
that's good news. Okay.
And our tier 2 target times are all specifically, those groups are created based on these breakdown of skill areas. So then our reading growth, we're hoping to hit 50% of our kids or 80%. Of course, we'd love that to be higher. Right now, we're already at 48% of our kids. Last year, we were at 40. So that's super exciting. They're showing more growth than they were. This is a new, a third goal that Red Creek came up with based off our school report card. Now, granted, that's a glimpse in time, but for years and years and years, our American Indian studies have shown a significant gap. And so our school just really wanted to go after that and be more mindful of the American Indian students in their class. And so many of them set their educator effectiveness, student learning outcome goals around these students in their class. So I just wanted you to, and our idea was that if we have that big of a gap to close, we need to do more than their typical growth. We have to go after that stretch goal and do more than a year's worth of growth. So our stretch goal on the right, we hit 12%, but just think of that, that's like a year and a half worth of growth in half a year. And so then I still wanted to look at that typical growth. That's 1 year's worth of growth. Where are we at when we're only halfway through the year? And we've already got 33% of the kids meeting that goal. So that's exciting, but it's years worth of gap to try to close. So we're continually working on that. And we just met with the teachers on those goals, and they're making some shifts. They're talking about attendance. If the kids aren't even at school, it's tough to teach them. And so they're working with our attendance interventionist, Francesca Bird. And so really some great conversations on how to get the students engaged, the families engaged. Then we have our math. So this is at or above for our math, all of Red Creek. Again, last year at this time, we were at 25%, now we're at 33%. And then here's that breakdown by domain for math as well. And then our final one is our growth. So our goal is 50%, we're at 29, last year at this time we're at 26.
Last year we ended up at 57, is that correct?
Yes,
As well?
yep. Any questions for Red Creek?
Thank you.
So I'm going to talk about the middle school tonight and just a continuation of iReady data. So just on this side, and I didn't have to do as much detail because it's not a report that is part of policy at the middle school level. So I just did overall scores.
Nicole, I'm sorry. Just to clarify, we did all of Red Creek, but that EGR grant that we have to present, and we submitted that a little bit harder to read, the report that we submit is only up through 3rd grade. So it's kindergarten through 3rd grade, but we wanted you to see the mid-year for all grades, so. Sorry.
No problem. So this graphic just shows the shift from fall to winter, going from 28% of students at or above benchmark to 32%. So as students grow and are older, these shifts are harder and harder to make due to what we're talking about with that gap. So this graphic is interesting because it doesn't have numbers, so it's not very nice to look at. That's why I included it on the notes, which it turned out on the screen that did on my paper. But we've really been targeting, one area we've been targeting among others is we've been looking at phonics still at the middle school level, which we hopefully won't have to do in the future. But like I said earlier, it's really hard to make those shifts for students who still have that level of need in middle school, because it's not just the skill level, it's how they feel about that schooling, and it's just a really tough shift. So those are really amazing numbers that we went from that red, that are 2 grade levels below in phonics at the middle school. We shifted from 12% to 7%, so that's a 5% shift, which is, I think that's really good work at the middle school. Then I just also pulled out, or just to highlight, is kind of next steps and things we need to focus on, and it goes back to what you were asking earlier. So when you look at these 5 domains, the first 3 are foundational skills, and those really need to be in place. That's just one piece. Where true comprehension and true readers come in is when they have that really good vocabulary, which correlates really closely with reading comprehension in both literature and informational text. So an area of focus that we really are moving towards is vocabulary in the middle school. And we hope to see changes in comprehension along with that. So this is that same graph. So if you look at it again, it's interesting. When we look at our Red Creek, we had smaller bookends. We had a really bigger bookend on the right. And we have, we're still at the 39% on the far left. And this is that student growth. So students we have a large percentage of students who have already met their goals. So that's their growth for over the course of a year. So really at midpoint, you want to be anywhere in the first of the 3 columns to the right. That's really adequate growth. And so we just need to keep working on strategies so that we're moving that column to the left.
The column left hasn't moved at all, is that correct?
Well, there's
some. Or haven't moved to another segment.
Yep, so what it's telling us is that they're made like up to 19% of their growth goal.
Okay.
So there may be some students who haven't made any progress, or that like some have made 20%. Sometimes that happens with kids that test really high will fall in there because they have to get 1 point to make their growth goal. So that can be a tricky thing too. Okay, so math made some really nice gains in benchmark from 18 to 27%. You can just visually looking at it quickly, you can see that our students that are 2 grade levels, with the little squiggly lines through, that's decreasing. And then what we're really been focusing on, are trying to target in the math areas, numerical operations. And we've had some shifts there as well. So there's some notes down there that I can't read. 20, yeah. And then just the bookends here. So we have a smaller area here, the 27% that aren't making as much growth as we would like to see. So math has done a really good job in middle school, I think, this year with some of that movement. And it is, I just have those slides from here. Are there any questions about middle school?
Well, the only question I have is, like you said, though, the foundational, which applies to Red Creek, should apply to the middle school. That's that you should see the comprehension go up quickly once they have mastered the reading foundational.
It's a 2-prong growth, right?
Yeah, so in other words, is something as that part of the curriculum then that also uses that? Are we in line with the curriculum, or is it something the curriculum is actually leaving students behind because the comprehension is not there yet? I'm just curious. How do you work with the curriculum with that? Do you guys modify it a little bit to try to go? is your strength and we're gonna try building the strengths, or, I'm just curious.
Strengths-based is really a good idea. I always think reading is two-pronged, like you have to have the foundational skills, you have to be able to read the words on the page, but that's only like a half the battle, but if you don't have it, it's, you can't do it. But then what really, it's not just reading, it's social studies, it's science, it's math, it's having a linguistic understanding, comprehension of our world, so it's every piece of their universe and being able to have a linguistic comprehension. And you put those together and that's when we get really good readers. So, yep, it's every aspect of the curriculum, it's diligence, and it's just continuing to work forward, it's hard work.
I appreciate it. Thank you for presenting.
Yeah, for sure. Any other questions?
All good news to see all that good growth. Thank you.
I had a general question. You mentioned a couple times about new math materials. That's for elementary, right?
Yes.
And when are you hoping to make that decision and have that?
We are in that process right now. I should have gotten the dates right in my head. I didn't write them down to be able to say the word. But there's it's coming up quick. We're really going to be able to do the next step, and that will be bringing that forward. Hopefully, we'll have a decision at the end of the school year what we're going to do.
Just one comment I would like to make is that as a board, we have to vote on those materials. And it's nice to have them sooner than that meeting, because just flipping through the pages is not really enough time to give it any kind of true consideration.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Any questions? Okay, is there a motion to approve the data review report?
So moved.
I'll second it.
Thank you. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Now we'll move on to Human Growth and Development Committee.
Dr. Sullivan is on again.
Yes.
All right.
She could just stay right there.
This was a really interesting process. We had met as a committee 2 times with a group of people, and we had to ensure that we had all the right people from all the right numbers, and there was a math problem that we had to do in order to make sure that we had all the right percentages. So we got that, so then we were able to proceed. So what you're seeing here is the agenda. Is there another document?
Which one would you like?
Yeah.
Oh, just pull another one.
There's lots.
Yeah, try that.
I think
So I was
17.
trying to be super transparent to explain. I had a hard time figuring out the best way to visually represent exactly what we did. So on this document, if there's things in red, that means it's new. So that's helpful maybe for you all to look through.
Yeah.
And then I think there's one, if we continue, let's just look through one more. That's the original one. And this is where we're at for the proposal for moving forward that the committee came up with. So I'll just go through and really quickly highlight what the big changes are. So the first one there is in 4th grade is that we would be adding that currently is not occurring. The idea would be for all of you personal hygiene, and then girls only, we called it puberty light. So the school nurse would present. We had a conversation about why that was good for students. And communication would be done with parents beforehand, because we would be splitting those up. And so there's a thing at the end about talking about how many frequently we would be sending out parent information. 5th grade would also have a shift. So previously it was just 1 day, and it was with a community partner. Well, our school nurse, Elizabeth Johnson, recommended that we add the curriculum that is up there, always changing growing up curriculum, so that students would be provided with something consistent, visuals for understanding, and really to provide them with background. And then the committee proposed that we continue to work with our community partners for 1 day. We divide students by gender, and it would just be a general presentation by that practitioner followed by a Q&A. So then 6th grade had a slight change in that we took out some of the 6th grade guidance course, because that's no longer happening. And then 7th grade was major change. So when you look through the ones that had, this is all new. It's a completely new curriculum. And the big topic that we spent the majority of our time talking about was in lesson 4. And you can see that it has a little subtopic, it has a little bullet that's not all the way filled in. And we talked about any of the topics of gender identity, gender expression, and sexual orientation. And I just want to commend the members of the committee for a very respectful and hard conversation around these ideas. And I think that everyone came to the table with our students'
best interest in mind, and what was the best thing that we could do for them. And I just think that everyone that was there did a really nice job of arriving at this. It was definitely a compromise, but it's a step that I think everyone felt good with. We had consensus for each of these items. And so this is all the topics that are in that curriculum. Then 8th grade, the biggest change is that there is now a baby simulator, which is kind of cool that can be taken home as an option. And then in 9th grade is pretty much the same as what it was, but we just had more information about that they're developing programming based on the shared learning standards, so that's new. And then these are other recommendations from the committee that the partner be invited as a speaker to supplement 5th grade curriculum, and that would be local providers. There will always be parent communication as highlighted in district policy. This was a change as well. So one-on-one questions. So in the previous document, guidance counselors were directed to be the ones that could answer one-on-one questions, and we felt strongly that teachers and all the people in students' lives should have permission to answer questions that students have. Also, the committee recommended that the board, that the health curriculum be reviewed on a 3-year cycle, unless there's a change according to district policy. And then we recommended to the board that the health requirement can be taken by 9th or 10th for discussion with the school counselor department. And the school counselor said that 9th or 10th would work. You just wouldn't want it to be 9th and 10th because of how ebb and flow of student attendance works. Also, just a future topic is PD for teachers and health topics. And then there is the board policy. Are there any? And then we have some committee members in the room with us, so if there's any questions.
Any board members that were on the committee wish to comment?
I was on the committee, and I think Amy was too.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. It was handled well by Nicole. It is a difficult topic. It is a cultural topic, I think, right now. So it's not just a reflection of what's going on here. It is the society in general. So I think that we came to a conclusion that was reasonable. I mean, like she said, it was a compromise consensus is what it was. So, I understand that this is also a developing curriculum as well, as you said. The 7th grade curriculum I think it's a significant change from what it was before. It was done very lightly before, and now there's a lot of effort put into it, I think. And the standards are also changing, as we've discovered too, in the last few years. So I think it's something the wise review, and I think the board should have asked questions and should possibly go ahead and reconvene this, or at least try to find out some answers before we have to go through another community, which I think is also a 3-year cycle is fine. But I think the health curriculum should be part of it. Obviously, the discussion always. That's I think also the other thing was to change was, and I don't know if it got communicated quite here, but I know we talked about when the teachers were now going to be able to talk to students, that the teachers would defer to the counselors if that was necessary. That was something that was in there too. I think we talked about it a little bit, and the only reason is because that way, if the teacher feels they're out of their realm or their comfort zone, they can actually still go back to the person who's been trained in that situation. So, and that's something I think that's already should begin. That's part of the PD in the future. I'm sure we could do, but that was the one thing I just didn't see that. I mean, we discussed it, but I don't know if we elaborated too much on that one. So we had so many things to discuss that those committees.
Well, one of the things that I think I may have brought it up, I don't know for sure, but I don't see a reference to it, is that we wanted to make sure that it was, that the syllabus or whatever could be viewed just as it could for all the other classes. So if a parent can look up their syllabus for their 7th grade social studies, they should be able to do the same thing for this as well.
Are those changes that you want noted on the document that Nicole shared?
yeah, if it's gonna be something we're voting on, it absolutely should be. And the other thing too, that, it was maybe not quite as much detail as I would have, thought, but in that lesson 4 for the 7th grade, that extra bullet point, the way that it says there of those topics of gender identity, expression, and sexual orientation, my understanding from the conversation that we had that day was it was meant to define those terms, not necessarily to get into a deeper discussion on all of that.
I agree.
Yes, because there's opportunities.
Couldn't hear, Dr. Sullivan, did you agree with that summary?
Yep, yes, we described it as being like one section of that lesson, that's a bigger lesson about relationships, and that it, that allowed for providing definitions for those, specifically those 3 words on the topic side.
So I just wanted to make sure that that's what happened, because if it just says it's a topic, well, it could go anywhere then, but if you are specifying that it's definitions, I think that keeps your parameters smaller.
If you just change the word from topic to definitions, would that be something that's acceptable? I guess it's.
So I would like to suggest that we bring this back to you next month for approval. I think we'll take another look at it. I'm just wondering, where it says recommend to the board that it be reviewed every 3-year cycle, are you suggesting that committee gets together or that the board sees it? Troy, I lost it a little bit when you were talking about the board should be a part of that, well, the board is part of the committee. Do you mean the board should talk first and then the committee, or what was that 3-year intention?
The 3-year intention was the committee was of the subcommittee of the board, yes. Every 3 years it should be reviewed again, as far as, instead of right now, the current policy states that it's as the curriculum changes, I believe, in other words, otherwise there's no need for a community interaction. But I'm talking about the subcommittee, the Human Growth and Development Committee, would meet every 3 years, and then if there's significant changes, present that to the board as at that point.
So I think what you're suggesting is change the board policy, not to the curriculum, right? Because board policy states that the committee has to review it. So that committee that you guys met with, that's great to make a recommendation, but you can't change policy without it coming to the board first. So I will also add the human growth and development policy to the policy committee list, and so it will come back to the board in that form as well.
And the reasoning behind that was simply that our other, like our math department or ELA, they're kind of on that 3-year cycle of reviewing things, and so I thought that was appropriate for this as well.
Okay. 341.3, data and policy list.
Okay, we'll delay that vote until next meeting then, is that what I heard?
That's fine.
Okay. Okay, any more discussion, questions?
Just to clarify, I have changed topics to definition and then just clarifying that teachers would defer to guidance counselors.
Good question, yeah. If it's out of the scope of
knowledge.
Yes, thank you.
And we want to make sure that it says that we are providing the curriculum or syllabus or whatever for the parents to be able to see that
To review
online,
before, yeah.
the same way they can for the other subjects.
Yeah, that's right.
Thank you, Dr. Sullivan, for all of your work and getting that collaborative group to be so efficient too. And are you up next for the student success reports as well?
Yeah. Actually, we had talked a little bit today that we were going to ask Mr. Mattson to share a little bit. He has done standards-based grading at 2 different school districts. And so we were interested in hearing some of his practical application and pros and cons. So if that's agreeable to the board, we would like to pivot a little bit and allow him to share.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I was going to read chapters 4 through 6 of grading, but because of the time, I thought maybe we'd just focus on me reading chapter 4. No, I'm just kidding. I do want to just take a moment. Thanks for letting me talk to you about this. I'll try to be brief. I think those that Dr. Severson referenced, I've done this in other districts in different capacities, starting as a teacher in Chippewa Falls in like 2013-14, we started to make the shift to standards-based. I then took an assistant principal job in a neighboring district where we started the implementation process, and I got to do it from a different lens. And then I left there and I took a job I went back to teaching in Rochester and applied theory of standards-based into my practice for 2 years. And that was a really unique experience. I don't think that people get to do that often in administration, where we're really good at theory in administration, but we don't get to actually put it into practice. So I got a lot of learning in those 2 years. And then I had the opportunity to do as instructional coach. Rochester Public Schools moved to what they call grading for learning. And I would always I worked with new teachers all the time, and I would tell them that hurts my heart to say that now we're grading for learning, because it insinuates that in the past we weren't doing that. And in essence, we weren't in many cases. And although grading for learning isn't truly standards-based, it occupies the same space, many of the same ideas. So I wanted to just share that first, and then talk about, today Dr. Severson kind of asked me to talk about the why of standards-based, not so much the implementation of it. So briefly, I just wrote down some ideas. I'm going to focus just on 4 things. The first thing is standards-based grading. Let me back up. I think there's this misconception that everybody gets a trophy, everybody gets a ribbon in standards-based, when actually the opposite is true if it's implemented with fidelity. It's that we set a standard. I'll talk about identifying standards here in a second, but we set this bar. We say, this is what it takes. You have to show me that you have learned this content or that you can perform the skill. And in the past, I know as a classroom teacher, when I first started teaching in the mid to late 90s, that certainly was not the case. Kids were passing class without being able to perform the skills at an acceptable level. Or on the flip side, kids were penalized because of their behavior instead of focusing on proficiency of the skill. So what we would do first is we identify in Rochester we call them prioritized learnings. Here we call them guaranteed outcomes. It doesn't really matter what we call them. It's identifying the most important standards in that content area. If you look at Wisconsin State standards in any content area, there are too many for us to focus on all of them. It's one of those things. I coached basketball. I was a basketball coach for 21 years. It's this idea that if everything's important, then nothing is important. We have to identify what's the most important thing. And so we identify these are the guaranteed outcomes that you have to show proficiency in order to receive X grade. We don't worry about grades right now. It's just proficiency. Okay. Secondly, moving in this direction. I need to back up, sorry. That idea of identifying the standards guarantees that we shift the focus from teaching and grading to learning. Right? That's the function of what we do. We have all these kids in the building to help them learn, right? And we focus too much on our teaching and grading. Let's focus on learning. It puts the focus back on the student learning. That's one thing. Second, it more accurately reports student progress. I would ask you this, like in a traditional grading scale, a grading class like we all went to school in, what's the difference between an 84 and an 86? Right? We don't know. There's no way to tell you, or even make it broader. What's the difference between an 81 and an 89? Right? What's the difference? In standards-based, we can more accurately tell you, this is where you're strong, this is where you need to work. And if the reporting of that to parents and to families and to students is invaluable. As a teacher, it's really rewarding to be able to tell a kid, you're really good at this. This is your strength. This is an area of growth, and this is where we're going to focus. We need to get better here. So it more accurately reports progress. It removes the idea of we're going to include your practice in your final score. You know, we want kids to take risks. We want them to make mistakes while we practice. We don't want them to make mistakes when we summatively assess. You know, at the end, it's good to make mistakes. It shows us that you're growing, and you're going to grow from that mistake. When you're assessing homework as part of the grade, I will tell you, I cheated on homework It was easy. I could, my buddies who were really good at stuff, I would just copy their stuff. Pre-calc, I was terrible at math because I never learned it. It wasn't engaging to me, so I would just copy. And then by semester, I'm like, Miss Van Osdale, I'm out. I need to get out of here before like the truth comes out. I can't do anything. But it was set up in a way that it wasn't assessing my learning, it was assessing my behavior. Like I was turning in homework all the time that was completed, but it wasn't my work. It wasn't, and I'm gonna guess I'm not the only one that did that. I know that my students that I had, certainly, I set it up initially in my teaching career to allow them to do that. Now we take homework out of the equation. It doesn't mean it's not important. Practice is really important, but it's not part of your final grade. Think if you're in a performing arts, whether tonight we have band and choir concert. By the way, can we work on not having these meetings on band and choir concert nights? Please. But so we want kids making mistakes during rehearsal and taking risks during rehearsal and improving during rehearsal so that on the night of the performance, they're as strong as they can be. No different like a sport, same thing. You kind of know where I'm going with that. Okay, last thing, and then I'll stop because I know it's late. But this idea that learning is not linear, right? We don't all learn at the same pace, so we have to provide opportunities for kids to show us what they know throughout a term, right? So the idea of reassessment, and I know people think, oh, they can just take it again. They're not gonna be engaged. They're not gonna want to do it the first time. I suppose there's a chance that happens if you set your classroom up that way. But if you build relationships with kids and tell them that you care about their learning, and you do the best you can, and we'll see where you are now, and you have a chance to show me later that you've improved on that same assessment. What's wrong with that? We want kids to learn the material, ultimately. So we hold this bar and we say, okay, first time you assess, you did not show me that you know it. You've got to do it again. Okay, you have to do it again, and you'll get it, and I'll help you. So I'll leave you with this. Like, what do you call a lawyer who failed the bar the first 3 times?
A lawyer.
A lawyer, right? So it's not linear. So that's, I'm happy to answer questions if you have them, but it's late. So
Tom had one first too.
Go for it, yeah.
John wants to go first. Go ahead. No. Oh, me? Okay. Is the rubric is the core of this? Basically, the rubric is the core for assessment, correct? The rubric is that over my answer?
I would say that selecting the right standards is the core. Everything else comes from that. If you haven't done the work ahead of time to select the standards that are most essential, rubrics are important. That comes next. But the core is you have to have the guaranteed outcomes correctly chosen.
So the guaranteed outcome would be a certain level of achievement or subject matter that has been grasped.
Let me give you, that's
if you give an example, I'd appreciate it.
Yes, I was just going to say, let me give you an example. I pulled up, so I did all this work, and I hate to do the thing where I was before, but I did do this work, and I think it's fair for me to share this with you. So for instance, in math, so this would be Algebra 1. These are the things that kids are assessed on in Rochester. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things. That's it. All of Algebra 1. Solve and apply systems of linear equations and inequalities. Use the properties of exponents and radicals to simplify expressions. Factor, solve, and graph quadratic equations. Identify and apply functions, and then perform operations on polynomials. So if you think, I'm not a math guy, so I don't really want to read. But I know that the content is the vehicle, right? That's the stuff that it just takes us through the entire term. We're focusing on those skills. So there are fewer skills, but all of the content is still taught. It's just that we're being assessed against those skills. The other example I would just share with you quickly is, like in science, the science department there is phenomenal for, I think, probably pretty clear reasons it should be in that city. So they have the same 8 standards for every science class. So starting biology all the way through all their AP level courses, it's the same thing. So it's ask questions and define problems, plan and carry out investigations, develop and use models, analyze and interpret data. So it's something like that. So and then clearly the content changes within science, but think about what it feels like as a student when you're speaking that language throughout. It makes sense. They understand that, again, the content is the vehicle, but those standards stay the same. So then, did you want to ask a question about the rubrics?
I don't want to take very much.
Okay.
Actually, I would like.
Can you tell that I can talk a lot?
I know, actually, sometime about how you rehearse, that'd be cool. But anyway, I don't want to take away your time. I appreciate your presentation.
And Tom, did you have a question? Okay. Okay, well, thank you very much, Mr. Mads.
Okay, thank you.
Any more?
That was pretty good.
I see everyone is trying to respect time, and my watch blinked that my bedtime was approaching, so it's winding down. It says wind down.
Can I elaborate on the notes that Shelley had written for this subject, actually?
Pardon?
Shelley had written some notes that are in our.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
The question is basically that the board doesn't decide assessment. But that's what the summary was, because I asked last meeting about when did the board actually vote to implement standard-based grading? And I got back that it wasn't the board's decision ever to do that because it's not in the board's scope. But there was a vote at one point that we did, before I was on the board, at some point, I don't know when it was, that they would do an investigation or pilot program into standard-based grading, and that's where we're at right now. So the board did approve the initial, just to, check out. So is that right? The board did approve that at some point that they would go ahead and start pursuing this. And then
I did not.
Go ahead, sorry.
I'm sorry.
No, it's hard to do on Zoom.
I did not dig back through minutes to find out if there was a pilot approved when I shared with you, and just to be very clear, I didn't say it was outside the board scope. I said there is board policy on grading, and our current practices are in alignment with current policy. So just to be clear, I didn't say it was outside of your scope. I said our current work is still within the board policy that dictates on grading. And so if you're asking for a policy change so that you have additional responsibility and could weigh in on something like this, then we can certainly talk about that as part of policy committee. What I did share, I'm going to revert back to a conversation that we had previously. We have kept the board abreast of our standards-based journey for quite some time, and I shared that there were two previous presentations that were done for the board. I have those dates with me, but over the course of the last 2 years, and each one of those presentations had our implementation timeline in it. And so if somebody didn't agree with that implementation timeline, that would have been the time to talk about that, because it was not presented as a, if you approve, it was presented as a, here's our journey on this. And the board was so deeply involved in this initially, that is when Mary Jo Radcliffe decided that she wanted to, well, and I'm gonna, this is my recollection, and I would lean on Amy and Mary Jo, who were also on the board at the time. There were questions by board members about standards-based, and that was part of the rationale for why the board decided to have a representative on that standards-based steering committee, so that that individual would also keep the board apprised of our forward progress. And so Mary Jo Radcliffe agreed to be on that committee. She's the one that recommended that perhaps we purchase books for other board members to read. I believe Dr. Sullivan has some with her tonight if there are other board members that want to read them, but there one in fall of 2020, I think, and then another one, I'll look it up so I'm not making stuff up, I'm sorry. Different times there were presentations on standards-based with timelines and implementation timelines included, and at no point did a board member say, we need to talk more about that. So that is the current status.
Okay, so now, if you read state statute, this is just interpretation, I'm not a lawyer, but if you go to 11830, paragraph C, it says the school board operating elementary grades, it basically says the school board is ultimately responsible for the assessment of pupils. And I know but you could also say, well, do you use the superintendent to carry that out? And I would not argue that. But there's a gray area. So at this point, I'm not saying stop pursuit. I would like to have more interaction as far as public input as to find out if this is something we need to go. And this is, the presentations are made to the board. I think there's something too that if it's affecting other students in the future, that we need to have more transparency with the students as well. Because standards-based grading, from the outside perspective, doesn't include the detail that I think parents need to know. Whereas because you're changing something that's been around for 70 plus years in the public school system, with just standard letter grades, and that's your assessment method. And also you're changing it now to what grades? And so it's a massive shift. And there's a lot of massive shifts going on with COVID happening and everything else, that there's a lot of issues that parents want to know what's going on. And so that's a big issue. I think it's something that we look at, and you mentioned that the board didn't say stop or hold back on it or anything like that. But most likely it's because we have new board members, we have new people going on, we had COVID going on. There was a lot of stuff going on since it started, as you said, in September 2020. That was the first presentation that I had seen on it. I know the board members talked about it before, but a lot of those, one board members leaving us, and so that leaves, honestly, 1 or 2 board members that have been here throughout the whole system. So in other words, I think it's just wise to go ahead and start. On the next agenda, could we go ahead and explore the details of this, and I will give you more details, I think, at a later date. I don't want to sit there and go, I want to nitpick every single thing, but I think it's something we should look at as an overall review, and I think the conversation with Mr. Madsen actually was very helpful. Thank you, by the way. But we need more stuff like that.
And so if I could just share, I need to be really clear. You stated state statute 11830. I just don't want any implication that we are not following state statute, all right? We have a board policy, and you know that the board's job is to set board policy. That is the way you lead. If you're wanting to make a suggestion to change board policy, then we certainly can do that through our policy process, all right? So I just want to be clear, we're not breaking state statute. You have to marry statute with board policy, and so I don't know how you have read through the policies or any of those things, but just know that is the board's, you set policy and you evaluate me, right? That you lead the district through policy setting. And so if you want to see changes to the grading policy, we can certainly talk about that using the process that is involved, all right? So we can have more conversation, but I just need to be very clear. Our elementaries have been doing standards-based grading for a couple of years. And so I'm a little concerned that you're now saying we're not sure we want to move forward when our elementary teachers and parents are already speaking that language and have been doing that. So we can have more conversation. I think perhaps you setting up a time to meet with Mr. Madsen and Dr. Sullivan would be really helpful to help your background. I would highly encourage any board members who have questions to consider checking out one of the books. Perhaps the whole board wants to do a book study to go along with it. We've had practitioners come in. I remember from the math department, Mr. Plaza spoke very, very positively about the increased engagement he's seeing in his classroom. So I am concerned that a path that we have been on and invested in deeply in new learning for our staff, that they start to get mixed messages that that's not the direction that we're going. So if the majority of the board feels like it's time to pump the brakes, then I would ask that we schedule another special meeting to have that conversation sooner. Do we need to set a board development session and just talk about standards-based so that we don't feel so pinched for time? If you want a deeper dive, I would highly encourage us to do that sooner rather than later, because as I said, elementaries have already been doing this for a couple of years.
At this time, I'd like to invite Dr. Mr. Madsen.
Sure. So I know this is, okay. So I don't want to do this all night, but there are a few things that you said that are just flatly not true. One is that we still have grades. Grades will be the same. We're actually going to go, I didn't know if we should get into the nuts and bolts of this, but I feel like maybe we should just say a few things. We're going to a 4-point scale. And the reason for many standards-based places will go 3-point. And so 3 would be proficient, 2 would be approaching, and 1 would be not. We're going 4 because we feel like it aligns more cleanly with things that the public already understands. Right? We understand a 4-point GPA. We understand A, B, C, D. And although it doesn't align exactly in the conversion, that's kind of the mindset. Okay, so I want to make sure we understand, we will still have grades. We will still have a GPA. Kids will still get an A, B, C, D, F or NC or whatever we're going to call that last one. There was another thing I wanted to address. The idea that it's been going on for 70 years doesn't mean it's right. How many ways can you, in a 0 to 100 point scale, how many ways can you fail? How many different point values can you 60 ways you can fail, and there are 10 ways you can get any other grade. Mathematically, it doesn't make sense. There is no, I've been doing a ton of research on this over the last several years. There is no research that supports the way traditional grade reporting has been. It's only that way because that's the way we've done it. So we rode horses for a long time, and I'm glad I don't have to ride a horse back to my place. I think that we adjust as we know better, we do better. This is different, but there are lots of districts that are doing it, and I would rather be on the right end of this than on the wrong end of this, where we're behind the curve and we're trying to catch up 10 years down the road. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you for your expertise on that.
I just have a quick comment. I'm sure I'm very much simplifying this, but I remember when our kids were little, and especially in kindergarten, they would have all these different things. Your student knows at least 16 letters. And then, those skills, of course, increase over time, and they either do or they don't. And so you had all these different standards in reading and math that they were assessing your kids on. Can they make, how many sounds can they make, et cetera, et cetera. And I feel like this is sort of the same thing, but of course adjusted for their age.
I question the assessment, that's what I'm trying to find out more about, and so I know this is not the proper venue in the meeting. If we could actually I will gladly take the time and talk to Mr. Manson and Dr. Sullivan, Principal Manson, and I'd love to do that at some point, and then if I have more questions, I can address that at a later time. If that's acceptable as a board, I think that's what I'd like to do.
Okay, I would suggest checking out the both options that
Fair is not
Dr. Sullivan has.
Yeah,
I know Mary Jo Radcliffe has been reporting all along on her committee work. Every meeting she has a report on that.
Well, I can only look at.
I highly recommend that.
I can only look from 2021 on because you guys limited my access too, so I can't see meeting minutes, I can't see anything in Moodle. And that's something that you decided as a board.
Access to certain documents, but not full access, no.
Access that every other board member has. You've limited that on me, so I can't look back.
Troy, I don't have that either.
You have Moodle access.
Not to anything previous to my time on the board.
How about my time you're on the board then? So in other words, you should have Moodle access to the time you're on the board, and I do not have Moodle access.
I'm not gonna argue with you, Troy.
It's just a fact. I don't have Moodle access from the time I took office.
Giving you full access will give you access to those meetings.
I don't want access to, actually, I have access
Then
to.
you'll get the information you need. No one's holding anything back. You can tell.
I asked for this last board meeting and I got, well, you don't need to know. So I really like to have access to it.
No one said.
So if I could please, sorry, I'm not there. It was going to be part of my district administrator's report, but since it has come up, at the last board meeting, Troy, you didn't ask for access. You made comments about not getting access and being shut out. And I wanted to share with you the email that I sent you on October 5th. And my last part of the email says, clearly, it says, if you want the materials or if you want additional reports as an elected official, then the attached policy tells you how to get it. Oh, I'm sorry, wrong one. If you want access to all board materials, we believe that is best handled as a conversation with the full board to ensure you do not feel that Mary Jo and I are censoring you, but that is a decision for the full board. Thank you so much, and I will wait to hear from you. That I sent to you on October 5th, and I heard nothing back until last month's board meeting when you made another comment, just like you did, that we are censoring you. You were invited to have a conversation, and you never responded. Instead, months later, you say that you've been cut off. If you'd like to have a conversation about why you were closed out of there, we can do that. You never responded to my email message back in October.
I never responded to it because I felt like it was a target. I feel it was targeted.
We were on student success report, standard-based learning, so let's.
You want to go to district administrator?
Let's move on to monthly expenditures. You received those in your packet. Anything for discussion to bring out?
Not on our end.
Okay, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you.
A second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, facility update, you received lots of reports from Myron with photos. We did talk about going to the high school for a personal tour of their progress last month, and
There were some delays because they had a string of cold weather days. You can see in the beginning of the document that they shared with us. So they were a good 5-6 days behind, and so they asked if that could wait till March. And then Mary Jo Radcliffe said, if you're already in March, could you possibly wait till the second week when I'm going to be back? And so we meet with them again tomorrow. We are going to make a request for that.
Perfect. Any other
Things that you'd like to discuss on the facility update?
Jill just spent an ungodly number of hours putting together the furniture bids. So there are some districts, when they do the referendum, they hire a service or they pay the architect to do the furniture bids, and Jill did it like desk by desk, every single classroom, and they have that, our request for proposals out right now. So I appreciate her and Joey Gilbertson's hard work on that. So it'll be exciting for the teachers to start seeing some samples and making those selections.
Okay, thank you. The next is building budget center allocations.
I definitely drew the short straw on presentation time for tonight's meeting. So I'm not going to go through everything that's in this PowerPoint, and I'm going to make sure you have it in your packet so that you can see it. A lot of the initial part is just talking about the revenue limit and our timeline and how we get there and all of that. In the end, we've already approved the capital maintenance projects, and the next piece that we usually have in our budget development is approving the building budget center amounts. So we talked about that as admin team. We look at basically the enrollments for each of those schools, or what we're estimating they're going to be for the next year. We use that per pupil amount so that, and I can get to that screen, I guess. Wow, this would have been easier if I did this. So these are the per pupil amounts that we look at, and they've been the same for the last couple of years. We made a change, I guess, in 21-22, and prior to that, they were pretty similar for a few years in a row. So we're using those dollar amounts on a per pupil basis. We then look at the enrollments at each of the schools. You know, I need to really see all these columns. What I'm looking at is an estimated allocation enrollment for 22-23 right here in the middle. We're looking at about 1,636 kids based on a conservative estimate for kindergarten, and moving everybody forward using different trending methodologies. So I didn't want to get into all that tonight at this time of day. Certainly welcome to come see me if you want to talk more about that. What happens then when we look at students moving ahead, the different grade levels, graduating, estimating that kindergarten class, we end up with a $7,200 decrease in those budget centers altogether. Oops, and I wanted to go back to one more thing, just giving you that budget overview as well. Because I don't know that we've talked about that here for a while. We estimate those revenue limits, and I compare it to this current year's revenue limit. Right out of the gate, we're looking at a negative $14,000, and that's largely due to a lot of things that are set in the state budget. That's a $0 per pupil increase, so nothing for inflation or anything like that. It's a $0 per pupil in categorical aid, and no change in the low spending districts, which we are one of. I would consider us one of those in the state. So no change in that amount either for low spending districts. Again, estimating the enrollment, we won't have those figures until September, but we have to set the budget before July 1st and live with that for 4 months until we do know all the final numbers. The next step then, we set a pool of dollars together. This doesn't mean that everybody gets a 2% increase. It just means it sets a pool of dollars so that we can fund. The biggest piece of that is our teacher salary schedule that we talked about last year. And then I'm also estimating a health insurance increase of 7%. And I'm not sure that that's going to be that high, but we like to be conservative at this time when we're going through all of our budget figures. Our consortium is bidding that out right now that we're involved in, so we will be getting those hopefully by the beginning of next month. And we're also doing some bids, looking at our own individual, just to kind of check the waters. If we weren't in that consortium, what does that look like as well? So it's kind of the time to do that too. We're also on here, I have a new higher retirement savings. So what that means is we have 2 retirees that we know of so far. And as we fund the other retirees that have left us, we actually have a savings in that amount that we pay out each year. That's $7,000 because 4 others are dropping off actually. And then here's that 7284 that I just talked about. That would be that building budget allocation change, and that's again primarily due to student enrollment changes. So setting those final, we're talking about how we're going to get to the rest of that dollar amount, right? So it's a big number, but we have a dip in enrollment as well. So there are some things that we'll be talking about that affect class sizes and different grade levels. But we will be bringing those back to you. I think next month is what our plan would be, to have some preliminary conversations about that so that you can take action by April. So again, these are those budget allocations, and what this does, these total amounts, it will help the principals start talking with their staff and getting budgets set for next year and develop hopefully by April for them, so that we can develop the full budget with those included.
Early stages of next year here.
I'm sorry about the quick and dirty, but if you have specific questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
And this is something we will look at continually through.
Yes, absolutely. It'll be on every month now until.
Okay. Are there any questions or comments on the process? With approval tonight, it'll just let them roll out the budget process to continue and bring back to us how it's working. What changes? Okay, is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carried. Meeting minutes, you had those in your packet. Anything you'd like brought out for discussion? Okay, hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
I so move.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, Dr. Severson, you ready for a report?
I'm down to only 2 items because the other 2 that checked off has been a lot. First, I noted in our calendar that we are meeting with our employee groups for handbook discussions, March 15th and March 17th at 3:30. And different times in the past, we've had a board representative sit in on those. So I am asking if there is a board member who would like to sit in on, you don't have to do both of them. One person could do 2 different ones, but 15th and 17th, and you can let me know if you're interested, but just wanted to extend that invitation. Obviously, we can't have a quorum there because that's not okay, so let me know if you're interested. And then finally, I was looking through materials. We haven't done a board evaluation this year, or most of last year as well. So board policy 152 talks about an annual evaluation. And so because of the late hour and the number of topics that we jumped through, I'm wondering if we need to schedule an additional board meeting in the month of March to maybe allow for us to take some time to do that, plus other business. Our meetings have just taken longer lately, and that's great if there's information that you want, but I don't like shortchanging things at the end of the agenda, and so just wondering if we want to schedule a second meeting for March.
Anybody have any thoughts on that? I'm open to scheduling a second meeting for sure. There's 4 Mondays in March. And we're already set for the 21st.
21st, yeah.
And I think
I could send out a Google poll, that would be easier. It doesn't have to be a Monday, or it can be a Monday. You know, if we even did the walkthrough at the high school and then had a meeting right after that, that would take some of the time. So
that sounds like a great idea.
And so would you like to talk board evaluation, or since you waited this long, you want to wait till after the election, or what would you like to do with board evaluation?
Yeah, I don't know if this is something that carried over for some weird reason, but I have March 14th, which is a Monday, down as development, school board development.
So I think Marty might have put those in to reserve the boardroom, and then I'm really not sure, because that happened one other time this year where Ann showed up for a meeting that wasn't on my calendar,
What
but
was on your Google calendar?
Marty, do you remember that situation?
No, I don't.
Yeah, this is something I put in, so maybe it was
Yeah.
something we
I see that the
tentatively
boardroom
discussed.
is reserved, Shelley, for that night at 6 o'clock.
Okay.
But that's it, it's not on your calendar or normal.
No.
Well, then,
I mean,
yeah,
a doodle poll about that, I guess, if it has to be changed, but 14th is good for me. Some head shaking, yeah.
That's fine for now.
Yeah, we got two members not here, so.
Okay, we can split up that agenda then for what we need to cover.
And we would like the tour to be a part of it, right? And March, you usually have a closed session for evaluation.
What do you guys think?
Yeah. we can do
Yeah,
that.
answer is yes.
Yeah, so, forward.
Okay, is that it, Shelley, for you?
That's all that I have, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next is WASB. Tom and I are attending the school law
conference this week in Wisconsin Dells. I don't have anything else on the agenda. Any other thing anyone wants to report on for conferences and workshops? School board connection opportunities.
Dr. Seuss's birthday
Yes,
reading
yeah.
is next week. I think I'm on Monday morning.
Yeah, I have medical appointments I was unable to attend, but yeah, that's always fun. Okay, I have a whole list of future agenda items identification. For policy, human growth and development, public comment policy, live stream, take it to policy council, and then possibly have a book study for board development. And we can discuss all this at the next meeting too, but I've also heard a bigger student voice would be appreciated in our meetings and within the board. Last meeting, we had decided to mask in our boardroom for respect and safety of one or more board members who have some health issues, and maybe we'd like to consider virtual voting for those who cannot attend because they don't feel safe because everyone doesn't mask and their doctors say do not expose yourself. So I think we need to talk about that. If we can't provide a safe environment for our board members, we might consider virtual voting. I've just put that on the agenda for maybe that special meeting. Okay. Okay, and I will write those down in a more clear. Anything else? Oh, I know. Okay. I would like one or two board members to help me write an informational article to just have a different side of our school district that's been, everything negative is coming out and the positive things among our school district are not highlighted. And if I go on the website, I want to respond to some things in a positive way. And I just wondered if a board member, I think Tom, maybe you want to be part of that statement. I mean, the statements are coming from me because I'm the spokesperson, but I really want some input from other board members. One of the things that I just look at that we're double the state average for industry recognized credentials. And as far as the Native American population, we are 4 times the state average for those students for that. Dual enrollment, above average. Work-based learning, above average. Absolutely we have work to do, but it is so hard when our school district is put down. We're here to support and work together. So I do want to make some statements. It offends me that we have people working against us and not with us when I was glad there was a celebration of the FFA leadership that was highlighted in this week's shopper. It just made me think that we need to respond. So If there's anybody else who would like to be part of that conversation to create that voice. Brad? Okay, thank you. At least one or two. Okay, well, think about that. If you'd like to be part of that, let me know. Okay, that's, anything else for the agenda items that I missed? I thought I wrote everything down throughout the meeting. Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you.
Seconded.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye.